This story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. As an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger, every spring...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham. I started taking Ozempic last night and it's really working. I've lost quite a lot of weight. So there you go. No, actually, I'm not Mike Graham. The more eagle-eyed among you will have noted. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, in for the great man. He's taking a few days off. Very well deserved. He really works hard, that guy. So good luck, Mike. We'll see you next week. I'll be doing Breakfast Morning Glory today, Monday and Tuesday, while Mike suns himself in a fantastic destination. But we've got a big show for you today. Lots and lots of news to get through. Probably the main story is the Chagos Islands. Our old surrender Starmer, having surrendered Brexit, has now surrendered the Chagos Islands in a deal that, frankly, no one can work out what the hell is all about. I mean, I genuinely mean this. I've been trying to see the reason for why this country has given the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Mauritius is 1,300 miles away from the Chagos Islands. It has never had sovereign control. So we basically go to Mauritius. Would you like the Chagos Islands? Yeah, all right. Yeah, OK. And then we go... Also, when we give you the Chagos Islands, would it be all right if we gave you £9 billion as well? Oh, yeah, we'll have some of that. Mauritius, of course, is China's best friend, so that's not so hot, is it? We'll be discussing that, of course, in some detail. Also, today, doctors, public sector workers, they're all threatening to go on strike again. There's a big surprise. Stand by for Labour caving in to every single one of their demands, and we in the private sector will have to pay for it. Welcome to Starmer's Britain. Also, more on the migration figures. Get the champagne out. Migration figures are down. The influx is down to 431,000. That is the legal influx of foreigners who now live in this country. Now, that is quite a considerable reduction on last year, so we are heading in the right direction. I think the word is better, but certainly not good. 431,000 is the population of Leeds. So, in essence, over the past year, this country, in terms of its population, has grown by the population of Leeds. That's not so hot, is it? And by the way, although 500,000 or so returned to their home countries, we still let in, last year, nearly 1 million foreigners, nearly 1 million legal migrants. Something has to be done about that. Also, we'll talk about chemical castration. Labour say they're going to chemically castrate sex offenders. They won't be, but that's what they're saying, because what they really don't want us to be talking about is the fact that they've cancelled punishment for all crimes. From now on, if you commit a crime, no punishment. It's old-fashioned. It's old-fashioned. So, actually, seriously, there's a sentence review, and the upshot of that is that sentences, punishments will be considerably lighter. Labour didn't fancy the idea of the publicity they get on that, so they said, oh, we're going to chemically castrate sex offenders. That'll dominate the front pages. Well, hasn't quite worked. A lot of journalists saw quite right through that ruse. Also, massive story. Front page of The Sun today, Doctor Who has been exterminated. The actor who plays the Time Lord has been chopped amid furious complaints by viewers that this clapped-out old series has become a woke nightmare. I can confirm that. So all that and so much more. Stay tuned. Lots to come. Let's get going. And with me for the first hour, we're going to go through the papers, a paper review, if you like, is political commentator Chloe Dobbs. Morning, Chloe.
Morning.
What are we doing up so early? I have no idea.
Well, we're talking about the papers whilst Mike enjoys his sunbathing.
Yeah, it's all right for some, isn't it?
Yeah, he's probably still asleep.
Yeah, having a well-deserved lie-in. Now, let's get started then. The first story that obviously we'd like to cover is, it's on the front page of quite a few papers, but the Times, for example, is splashing on Starmer surrenders Chagos. Also, I'm not sure we've cut this, so just in case those of you who are viewing, this is the Daily Mail. Call this a deal. It's the worst ever. Now, as I said in my intro there, Chloe, I genuinely mean this. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why Starmer has given the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. So, can you help me?
I think I will struggle, because he has tried to justify himself at his press conference yesterday, explaining to us how he is the strong leader of Britain who is putting our national defence first, because he has secured a deal to make sure we've got access to this military base. And he's saying, don't worry, it's only 100 million quid a year. And he said, what, it's the less than the cost of running an aircraft carrier minus the aircraft or something like that. But he's missing the point here. It doesn't matter if the figure is fairly small. What he has done is given away something that we own and then said, now I'll pay you for the right to use it, right? If I owned a house and I said, Kevin, have my house, and then I go to you and say, actually, can I pay you rent to stay in my own house?
Right.
It's genuinely insane, and this sends a very strong message to the world that Britain is super weak and can be taken advantage of. And when you look at the further into the terms of this deal, it just gets even worse. So we have to tell Mauritius in advance if we're going to launch any attacks from the Diego Garcia military base. So what are they going to do? They'll just pick up the phone to China and say, oh yeah, the Brits are meant to launch an attack.
Is that Xi, got some news for you.
So I mean, this is just stupid. And also, we have to have a preference. I guess this is maybe some DEI thing. A preference for hiring Mauritians to run the Diego Garcia military base. So it's not going to be our lot. It's going to be the Mauritians running it, even if we're technically paying rent to run it. And also, we're paying money for Mauritian economic development. And there are a lot of questions over how much this is actually going to cost. Keir Starmer is being accused of telling fibs and downplaying how much this is actually actually
Telling
going to
lies?
cost.
Come on.
Because he's saying this is only going to cost us something like 3.4 billion is one of the figures that they've put about. But then the Tories are saying, no, hang on, this could actually be more like 30 billion. I'm hearing all sorts of different figures. But this is very embarrassing. Henry Bolton put out a clip yesterday saying he thinks that this will be Starmer and Lammy's Iraq war moment. He thinks that they'll never recover from this, just like how Tony Blair never recovered from making the wrong decision.
Well, I think you're right, but I think there's all sorts of howlers, horrific mistakes this guy is making from which he will struggle to recover. I mean, in this week alone, he surrendered Brexit. He's also done a deal, this has quietly gone under the net, he's done a deal ceding power to the World Health Organization to basically impose more lockdowns on us. So this is a gormless globalist at work, a man who doesn't particularly like Britain, only sees Britain in terms of a small cog in the international wheel. So yes, the Chagos Islands is just bizarre. And you know, let me just reiterate, the Chagos Islands are very strategic. In the middle of this archipelago of South Sea Islands is the largest island called Diego Garcia, which always sounds to me like a Real Madrid footballer or something. But so you've got this Diego Garcia Island, and on that is a airstrip, a very strategic airstrip used by the British, used by the Americans, and from there we monitor the Middle East, we monitor the Far East, we monitor China, we monitor Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. It is crucial. It is crucial. Now, Starmer will say it's all right. What I've managed to do is retain Diego Garcia because we will rent that from the Mauritians for the next 99 years. Yeah, but if you didn't give them the Chagos Islands, Keir, you wouldn't have to rent it. You know, so as you say, Chloe, we have given these islands to Mauritius. Mauritius is 1,300 miles away, about the kind of distance from London to Marrakesh or something like that. So it's, you know, and when apparently we went to Mauritius and said, would you like the Chagos Islands? They went, what? They have never had sovereign control.
Yeah, see, David Lammy, he loves this. He laps this up because he thinks that this is decolonisation, handing it over to Mauritius. When it was never belonging to the Mauritians in the first place. And then you've got Keir Starmer, who, you know, as you say, is just a globalist who only is interested in listening to his mates at the ICJ and whatnot on this matter, rather than actually speaking to any Chagosians who are crying out saying, we don't want our island to be handed over to the Mauritians. This is betrayal to them. They're absolutely furious about this, but he's not meeting with them and talking to them and figuring out what their concerns are. He's just listening to his, you know, international bureaucrats and lawyer mates.
But this is the only possible explanation for this bizarre, ludicrous giveaway, and it is, as you say, Chloe, this is born of the North London Guardian reading dinner circuit's guilt trip about British colonialism, British imperialism. They just feel we shouldn't have this country, these poor islands. We mustn't control them. We must give them back to their rightful owners. Mauritius isn't the Chagos Islands' rightful owner. It's just sort of somewhere vaguely in the same kind of area of the world, 1,300 miles away. But as you also rightly say, Chloe, this deal, it is, you know, oh, would you like these islands? I don't know. All right. Also, if we give you these islands, Mauritius, you know, best friend of China, would it be all right if we also gave you £9 billion? Oh, well, now we're getting very interested now. This is the real villain of this story. Of course, Starmer's the villain of every story, but the real villain is a guy called Richard Hermer, who is another lawyer, another one of complete and utter lawyer Keir Starmer's complete and utter lawyer friends from the North London Guardian reading dinner party circuits. He hates Britain, Richard Hermer. So when Starmer so tragically won the election and became our Prime Minister, oh my God, why did that ever happen? But it did. One of his first moves was to ennoble this bloke Richard Hermer, you know, a lifelong hater of Britain, you know, make him a Lord so he could appoint him Attorney General. And Richard Hermer has been the driving force behind this deal. The only reason this is happening is because idiots like Hermer and Starmer are guilty about British colonialism.
Exactly. I mean, we've got people who hate this country running the country.
Yeah.
But David Lammy, he doesn't like Britain at all. He thinks we should just give away all our money in reparations to the Caribbean and whatnot. And then we've got this guy as well. You know, Starmer's surrounded by lawyers and whatnot that despise this country and think that we've got an evil history that we need to cough up a load of money for and hand away our territories for.
Indeed. Well, listen, let me know what you think about this, because I was on air last night and I know that our audience, our wonderful audience out there, are extremely energised, angry about what's happened. We all should be furious about this. You're right, Chloe, this is going to be one of the deal breakers for Starmer, but there are so many. I mean, the Brexit betrayal, the deal he's quietly done with the World Health Organization.
But this means we're going to be taken advantage of in every other negotiation that he does on the world stage.
Well, it's useless.
All the other countries are looking at this going, oh, we can get whatever we want out of Britain now.
He's the worst negotiator in the world. So we've got the World Health Organization, now the Chagos. So get on the phone, everybody. Let me know what you think about this. This Prime Minister of ours who keeps operating against British interests. He's done it 3 times this week. The World Health Organization is China's best friend as well. This is a disgrace. Before we go to break, let's quickly talk about another front page story. It's on the front page of the Times and the Guardian. Doctors threaten to go on strike, as do the rest of the public sector. Their recent massive pay rise wasn't enough for them. The problem with this is, in the old days, you would say, do one, doctors, you're not getting any more money. But Labour will give them what they want.
I think that they will. I mean, this is difficult for Labour because they have just been boasting to all of us about how many extra NHS appointments they have created. The only way that they created those extra NHS appointments was because they managed to stop the strikes, which were part of the previous period of figures where there weren't appointments happening because the doctors aren't there. If there are more strikes, you're going to end up with the number of appointments each year then going down again. It's going to be a nightmare for them when Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer are desperate to make it look like the NHS is improving and moving in the right direction. So they will probably give in. And those doctors, they're looking at how Keir Starmer negotiates in Chagos and everything else, and they realise we can ask for whatever we want.
What happened last
time. We'll get it, yeah.
Look what happened last time. They just got exactly what they demanded.
Exactly. And Labour have said, oh, that's a win because we got all these extra NHS appointments. But now we're hearing that they
haven't.
The huge public sector pay rises that have happened under Keir Starmer are costing an extra $7 billion. They've got to find that money somewhere. Rachel Reeves has got to is probably going to have to put up taxes again in the autumn budget to pay for things like this. If they give them
still in that job.
If they give them another pay rise, well, we're going to be paying 100% tax the way it's going.
And this is the way this Labour government operates. In fact, it's the way all Labour governments operate. It's this. They just leech off the private sector. All of us who work in the private sector, private industries, private companies are taxed to the hilt. That's why we keep getting these rises, tax. There are more tax rises in the air, folks. Guarantee you. And the reason they take all the tax off us in the private sector is to give that money to the public sector. It is economic suicide, and not the way to run a country. But Keir Starmer, as he is proving in the most catastrophic way, is incapable of running this country. He is incompetence incarnate. Shall we go to a break now? And when we come back, we'll talk about my favourite dinner party topic. It is mandatory chemical castration for sex offenders. That next, stay tuned.
Where an offender is identified by the courts as being dangerous, they fall into one particular regime, which is about extended determinate sentences. And there, what happens at the moment is that you get a parole board hearing 2/3 of the way through your sentence. What we recommended, this is actually not something that the government is taking forward, is that if you behave well, you could bring that parole board hearing forward to halfway through your sentence.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Welcome back. This is Morning Glory with me, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'm with political commentator Chloe Dobbs. In case you're only just joining us and you're shocked to see my wonderful face, Mike Graham is on holiday. He's taken a few days off, thoroughly well-deserved as well. He's in a very, very lovely, glamorous place. Lucky sod. Right, I'm going to read, before we go back to the papers, we're reviewing the papers at the moment, I'm going to read out a message that kind of annoys me. It's from Adrian. He says, Kev, why do you keep saying Starmer is the world's worst negotiator? He is selling this country up the river. I think it's down the river, isn't it? With ruination, its destination, which is exactly what he wants. In that respect, he's doing great. You know, this narrative about Keir Starmer's some really clever operator. He's got a secret plan. Yeah, it's all going brilliantly. He's too thick for that, Adrian. Trust me, this is not a plan. He thinks he's doing well. He really does. Did you see him after the Brexit betrayal? Secure the Brexit reset that will put Britain back on the world stage. He was genuinely thrilled. Genuinely thrilled. You know, what did we get with his Brexit reset, his Brexit betrayal? It was this, a bit like the Chagos. So ever since we voted to leave the EU, and especially since Boris finally got it done, we obviously haven't been paying Brussels a penny. Don't have to, we're not a member. Now, thanks to the Brexit reset, fixing the foundations, thanks to the Brexit reset, we now will be paying billions of pounds to Brussels for the privilege of having to obey their rules and regulations, their millions of rules and regulations. We're back in the EU, only we don't make the rules anymore. We don't have a vote. We have to take the rules. That's how bad that deal was. So we're suddenly having to pay Brussels to take their rules again. So anyway, don't fall for that claptrap about how he's some sort of sinister genius with a nefarious plan to ruin Britain. He really is not that bright. He's just useless. He's just incompetent. Thank you for getting in touch, Adrian, but, you know, really, really, don't kid yourself. We are in the hands of an incompetent moron. Now, let's go back to the papers and let's talk about chemical castration. Love talking about that. I'm always talking about it. Seriously, Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, says she's actually in favour of the mandatory chemical castration of sex offenders, jailed sex offenders. She's even interested in rolling that out to sex offenders with suspended sentences. There's apparently a small pilot scheme going on in the southwest. She wants to roll it out to 20 prisons around the country and then make it national. Well, that's what she's saying. This isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. It's a load of old nonsense. The reason they've announced this, it's to cover up this. which is the Daily Express, saying early release for killers, an insult to all victims. Now, what was announced along with the chemical castration shocker was the fact that basically Labour is cancelling punishment for crime. Nobody's going to go to jail for less than a year. All sentences below less than a year will be cancelled. Which is ridiculous. There'll be all sorts of imaginative new punishments, like, you know, obviously...
They want to focus on community service, but the problem is, I can't remember the exact...
You've forgotten being banned from football matches, even if your crime has nothing to do with football. You've also forgotten, and this one will teach criminals, this one will teach them restricting their use of social media. Do you know what Shabana Mahmood calls it? Prison outside of prison. She's cancelling prison, and rapists, killers are going to be let out. Good behaviour now. You can get like half your sentence off, or a third at the moment, I think. Good behaviour now will get you 2/3 of your sentence out. So if you get a rapist sent to jail for 9 years, likelihood is he'll do 3 years. This is why they announced chemical castration, so that all the papers splash on it and they don't talk about the real story, which is essentially Labour is cancelling punishment for crime.
Yeah, it's just the Labour spin doctors at it again.
Yeah, good operation by them. Credit where it's due, but that's not the story.
It's not worked, because I think they often think that we're idiots, and they can give us... They do this all the time. Like, they'll give us a figure. I mean, for example, they're trying to act like they are responsible for the fact that the net migration figure has gone down in half. We had them telling us the number of people that they are deporting from the country to make it look like they've got control of our borders. But we're not idiots. We're not falling for this. And, you know, in this case, they are going to be letting out dangerous individuals far earlier than they should be. So typically it's 50% of your sentence is when you're let out if you've been good. But now it's going to be 1/3 of your sentence if these plans go ahead. And they're going to make up for that with more community service and whatnot, as you say. But the thing is at the moment, as it stands, loads of community service it's not happening. People are just not turning up.
They just don't turn up.
They just don't turn up. They don't do it. I can't remember the exact...
They don't pay fines either.
Yeah. So unless they get a grip on enforcing the community service sentences people are given and make sure people actually turn up, I don't see why this is a good policy. They're just going to give people more community service hours on paper, but nobody's going to turn up for them. And I don't really, it doesn't really sit with me that well, the idea of, say, you know, a murderer or rapist being let out on the streets early. But don't worry, they're painting some railings for the community, so they're not a danger anymore. I mean,
you make a really good point. The problem with community service unpaid work is that loads of people just don't turn up for it. They don't like the pay rates. Honestly, this is the problem. And this entire review, sentence review, by David Gauke, the world's wettest politician, Labour's favourite Tory, the only reason for it is they haven't got any jail space. So they're having to come up with new and imaginative punishments that actually are much lesser punishments. The net result of Labour's sentencing review is Labour is going to be softer on crime and softer on the causes of crime. There will be lighter sentences all round.
And I think that one of the things that is frustrating Brits the most at the moment in Broken Britain, as we call it, is that people feel like the streets really are less safe than they used to be. I mean, particularly in London, where, you know, who on earth goes to prison for carrying a machete? The police just give them a tap on the wrist and then say, off you go on carrying your machete around. And this is not sending a good message to Brits who are really hoping, you know, especially, you know, young people like me thinking, do I want to have a family one day? And they look at the state of Britain and think, well, no, because I don't want my kids running, living in a world where people are running around with machetes and whatnot. So, this is not good news at all. And I sympathise for them partly in that the Tories did fail to A, build prisons, and B, do the upkeeping work to keep the prisons in good shape. But they can't just keep blaming the Tories for the mess.
Absolutely, and they can't take credit for the migration cut. By the way, you talk about young people thinking about starting a family, or maybe not thinking about it. There's a story on the front page of the Times today saying more and more young couples are turning to dogs. They're getting dogs instead of having kids. Now, you and I, Chloe,
I'm perfectly guilty.
We both own a Cocker Spaniel, so I would urge all of you young couples who are thinking about getting a dog instead of having a kid, choose kids. Choose kids. Seriously, you get yourself a Cocker Spaniel, they will dominate your lives in a crazy and entertaining word, but they're not a sideshow, trust me. Let's go to break now, shall we? And when we come back, we'll talk about those migration figures.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Morning Glory. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm not Mike Graham, and she's Chloe Dobbs. Mike's on holiday. Now, we're going through the papers today. Page 2 of The Sun, and obviously in a lot of the other papers as well. Page 2 of The Sun highlights what you might call the ostensibly encouraging new immigration figures. We're talking about legal migration, of course. And the legal net migration for last year, 2024, was almost 50% down on the previous year, 2023. But we still ended up with 431,000 more people living in this chronically overcrowded island than the year before. 431,000 is, for example, the population of Leeds. That's about how many people live in Leeds. So that's how much our population grew last year. There are other worrying aspects to this, Chloe. As I say, what you have to say about this generally is better, but still really not good. 948,000 foreigners moved to the UK in 2024. 517,000 left. That's the way it goes. A lot of these people who come for a year or something, they go back. But nearly a million foreigners were still let in on legal visas. We've got to do something about that, haven't we?
Yeah, the Labour Party are boasting, first of all, acting as though this was them, when actually this was the Tories' changes to visa rules. For example, we realised when we had that horrifying figure of over 900,000 net migration that a lot of that was students, for example, bringing a load of dependents with them. So we clamped down on that. We changed the salary thresholds and whatnot for foreign workers. And so that has started to come into effect. But this is by no means a good figure. I mean, Theresa May and David Cameron, they both said they wanted to get it down to about 100,000. We're still absolutely nowhere near that. We've had politicians promising to get the numbers down to the tens of thousands. We are miles and miles away from that. Also, if you delve into these figures a bit, you see that the number of people deciding to leave this country is going up. I think there's been an 11% up.
Yeah, mostly they're billionaires.
Yeah, people are fed up of Britain, and so there are more Brits leaving Britain, more foreigners coming in, very much still creating issues with changing the demographic of this country at a far quicker rate than we can have integration. And so, the Labour Party, they can try and claim that this is a win. They see it as low-hanging fruit. But, I mean, people haven't fallen for it, right? They've put it out on social media all of yesterday, but I don't think it's on a single one of the front pages. It's on page 2 of The Sun, which is the best that they could get.
Let's get this straight. This, decent move in the right direction. I mean, the figures are still astronomically high, but at least
Labour didn't do it. They've been twiddling their thumbs. About nearly a year after being in power, they've now come out with a white paper on immigration that they've been thinking about over the past year.
But it's nothing to do with
Labour.
Labour.
There's no sense of urgency with Labour.
It's nothing to do with Labour.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with Labour. Even the BBC, in its report yesterday, conceded this was all down to Tory
Well, that's
moves.
saying something.
The Tories, they were pretty useless on immigration, but they began to bring in panic measures towards the end when they thought, oh, hang on a second, the fact that we've let like millions and millions of people into the country over the past 14 years, it turns out people don't like it. Well, we better start bringing in some new laws. So Rishi Sunak brought in these panic measures, and they are working. They are starting to work. But if the net result of this is 431,000 more people living in this country, we need to do one hell of a lot more. And by the way, on the illegal migration front, we'd been about a week until about 3 days ago. It's been about a week, nil, no one coming over. You get the figures every day from the Home Office, the number of boats crossing the channel. And then, 2 days ago, it was like, 49, what that? And loads of these lefties going, see, reform, these are the figures that the Reform UK don't want. They don't like this, do they? When we get 49. Next day, was it yesterday or the day before? How many? 820. It's a record. 820. The biggest number this year. And still they come. They're coming over in their droves. And Starmer has no plan to stop it. He has no deterrents. And his...
Scrap the only one we had.
Smash the gangs is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. A, they haven't smashed any gangs. And B, if they did, there would be new gangs tomorrow. You've got to stop the migrants. Never mind the gangs. If you stop the migrants, the gangs would have no raison d'etre, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing also in this Sun article on this story that only 4% of people that come here on a small boat get deported. So what kind of deterrent is that? Keir Starmer came in. I was in Calais shortly before the general election last year, and I had a load of migrants telling me that we're waiting for Keir Starmer to get into power because they genuinely were worried about Rwanda. I was very sceptical about Rwanda until I heard that from them. And as soon as Keir Starmer came in, the floodgates just opened. They all came across, right? And we had Yvette Cooper with her, smash the gangs rhetoric, telling us before the general election that she's going to have this new border force command that's really serious, right? What did they do? They waited until after the summer. They waited until the autumn, after everyone came in the nice sunny weather, to appoint someone to run the thing.
Chloe, I'm sorry to counteract you there, but they couldn't find anyone to do the job. In the end,
I think they had someone and then he stepped
down. They couldn't get anyone to do it. And in the end, for they're going 200 grand a year. Everybody goes, no thanks, no thanks. In the end, a guy called Martin Hewitt, former copper, took the job and on day one announced smashing the gangs won't solve the migrant crisis. Since then, this government has given the Border Security Command £200 million worth of high-tech equipment to locate and smash the gangs. How many gangs have they located? Oh, I know, none. How many gangs have they smashed? Oh, I know, none. 200 grand a year to the boss, £200 million for the equipment, and the net result of this is nothing. Zilch, zero, nada. Great, isn't it? We've got a voice note, WhatsApp voice note from Anne on the state of the country. Take it away, Anne.
Morning, Kev. Anna, sorry. If I'd have said this a year ago, I'd have had myself sectioned. I think between anger at the way people like Lucy Connelly, Julie Sweeney, I know he's controversial, Tommy Robinson are being treated so there's no confidence in the law. The crazy ideas that he's coming out with, which basically insults our intelligence, and fear. There is a great deal of fear out here and hopelessness. I actually think we will be in some type of civil war, not disobedience. It will be an all-out assault on our own status quo government, whatever you want to call that moron. Sorry to sound dramatic, but I'm a normal person. I genuinely think it's in the pipeline. It's going to happen. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Well, Anne, I don't think you are sounding dramatic. A lot of people are thinking this, that we're heading for some kind of social unrest. I don't want to fan the flames of this, but the mood of the nation is getting very febrile, isn't it, Chloe?
Absolutely. I couldn't hear that, but I'll let your paraphrase of it. I'll respond to that. I think that there very much is a feeling in this country that democracy is not working. The politicians are simply not listening and living in a bubble. And, you know, particularly on this story that we've just been looking at about immigration, I don't think Keir Starmer quite grasps how furious, even after,
I agree with
after
that,
the riots last year, I
absolutely.
don't think he's quite grasped how much the British public care about this. They just look at a spreadsheet and go, oh, the number of people coming across in boats is a small proportion compared to the net legal migration figure, so it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, just look at how his response to the public outcry to end hotel use, what his response has been. He's just gone, oh, we'll just move them out the hotels and just put them in private rented accommodation, and then people will get evicted from their homes to make space for the migrants. That will sort it. He doesn't get it, and people are furious. And if people feel like they go to the ballot box and they're not listened to, they've tried to do things peacefully to have their voice heard and it's not working, then I don't advocate rioting, but I understand why it happened last year, and I can see why it could possibly happen again.
Yeah, and let's remember those Southport riots, the summer riots that Keir Starmer went round going, far-right thugs, not protest, far-right thugs. Well, Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Police last week came out with a report, an extensive report on those summer riots, particularly Southport, and their conclusion unequivocally was this: it wasn't far-right thugs. You couldn't define the protesters politically, but they were unified by one angry emotion. They were protesting. This is the Inspectorate of Police, the official police watchdog, full of senior officers. They said they were protesting about decisions by the government on asylum seekers. So here's our Prime Minister's depiction of that unrest, of the Southport riots and the other riots, that it was far-right thugs just causing trouble, was not true. It's wrong. It's wrong. Genuinely, they were protesting against the migrant crisis. So there you have it. Let's go to break. And talking of the migrant crisis and, of course, those protests, those riots, one of the worst victims of the wave of kind of Stasi-like justice that was imposed on, I think it was about 385 rioters. Many of them, you know, I'm not condoning those who threw bricks at the police or tried to set fire to mosques or asylum seeker hotels. You know, if you're going to do that, then you deserve to have the book thrown at you. But many of those rioters were just holding placards. They were just shouting slogans. Now that is, the thing about most of those riots, most of the people taking part were actually protesting peacefully, but many of them just got nabbed, banged up, arrested, charged, in jail within about 3 days. It was two-tier justice at its worst. Now, out of those 385 people, it was about that, who went to jail very, very quickly with indecent haste. Most people in the British justice system wait about 2 years before they go to court. But Keir Starmer, his spectre hanging heavily over that strange, sudden about turn in the process of the legal system here, just saying, oh, make it fast, get them in jail, teach everyone a lesson. I mean, this was the Prime Minister telling judges to sentence people harshly. And they did. Now, out of the 385 who went to jail, 12 went to jail for hurty words they posted on social media. Nobody in this country, nobody in a Western democracy should go to jail for what they write on social media. And the worst victim of that was, of course, the poor mum, Lucy Connelly, who is still in the middle of a 31-month sentence for a few hurty words on Twitter. 31 months. She got considerably more than quite a few of the actual rioters. People throwing bricks, people trying to set fire to mosques. They got less than she got. What is she doing still in jail? Her appeal failed earlier this week. They said, oh, there's no possible argument to suggest that her sentence was manifestly excessive. Yeah, there is. It was manifestly excessive. Anyway, last night, a little exclusive, well, quite a big exclusive, I think, for my show, The Political Asylum. Last night I interviewed Lucy's heartbroken, devastated husband, Raymond Connelly. And when we come back after this break, we'll play you a few clips from that and we'll discuss that issue. So stick around, folks.
Point is, they have now demonstrated to the world in this negotiation, as in so many others, that under any kind of pressure they roll over. This is a really, really negative signal they're sending to the world, just as we're seeing with their U-turn on winter fuel allowance because their backbenchers got a little bit shirty. Keir Starmer and the Labour government do not have the resolve to act in the national best interest.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Morning Glory. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, standing in for the great Mike Graham, who is taking a few well-deserved days off. I am with political commentator Chloe Dobbs. We're going through the papers, but last night on my show, Political Asylum, I actually live in this building. I didn't go home. I just sort of sat around for 10 minutes and came back into the studio. But seriously, I interviewed Lucy Connelly, the poor lady who's doing a grotesquely disproportionate 31 months in jail for hurty words on Twitter. I interviewed her heartbroken, devastated husband, Raymond Connelly. He's a Tory councillor in Northampton, which may have had something to do with the severity of her sentence. I just wonder if he was a Labour councillor and she was a lady of the left, if she'd have got the same harsh treatment. I doubt it. Two-tier Keir, two-tier Britain. But here is Raymond. He's having to bring up their daughter, their 12-year-old daughter, on his own. He's sort of getting his mum to help bring her up, but she's missing her mum. Lucy's not allowed home on day visits to see her kid, so she hasn't seen her kid. And and apparently the prison authorities where they can't understand that. But it's because the word has come down from old two tiers Keir. Don't cut her any slack. He wants to teach the nation a lesson through the auspices, the prism of Lucy Connelly's dreadful fate. But here's Raymond.
We're not too bad. We're a good little team, but obviously this has probably knocked my daughter a little bit. So what I've done, because she's got bad anxiety anyway, and she kept saying, "Oh, when's Mummy's letter coming? When's Mummy's letter coming?" And I said, "Look, we're just waiting now." And obviously she said, "How did it all go?" And I said, "Pretty good. I'm confident, I reckon, I think we're going to go and I think we have a good chance." But I was mindful. I said, "But, if not, we're going to see her Sunday. We're going to go to a family day. Then it's only a couple of months away and she'll be here and whatever." But she'll be thinking she'll be missing my 13th birthday with the date I gave her. But what I've done is I've sent her to live with Lucy's mum, because she has been really having a real tough time. So I've sent her to go and live with Lucy's mum, with Lucy and Lucy's sisters there, just to give her a little bit more support, because she has really been struggling.
Good-looking guy on the left there. No, seriously, that's Ray Connelly, of course, talking about, it's terrible for the poor guy, having to bring up their kid on their own. Now, don't forget, she'd already done, old Lucy, about 280, 290 days behind bars. Now, after her appeal was summarily rejected in a decision that I think shocked and appalled the nation, the treatment of this woman is a stain on British justice. What she tweeted was a mistake. It was stupid. It was not a good tweet. We don't condone what she wrote. But she is a mum who had lost her baby son a year earlier in tragic circumstances, actually due to an NHS mistake. And when she saw or read about and heard about the fact that 3 young mums had lost their little girls in that awful slaughter in the Southport dance hall, she just emotionally flipped, and it was a sort of cri de coeur really about the poor fate of fellow mums who'd lost their children. So she just erupted in a kind of a rage, went over the top, talked about like mass deportation, burning the migrants. If that makes me a racist, so be it. What doesn't get enough coverage is the end of that tweet, which was something along the lines of, my heart bleeds for those poor mothers. Mothers should never have to lose their children in these awful, tragic circumstances. That was the essence of what the tweet was. Anyway, so no one's condoning what she did, but I don't think anyone, all of those 12 people in jail for tweets, should be in jail. No one in a Western democracy should be jailed, caged for what they write on social media. And when Keir Starmer says, "I'm a real defender of free speech is so important," you're not a defender of free speech, mate. Any leader of a country who presides over the imprisonment of people for writing hurty words on Twitter is no defender of free speech. Keir Starmer is the enemy of free speech, right? And before I get your comments, Chloe, this is Raymond again, Raymond Connelly, talking about Starmer. Starmer pretended he didn't even know about this case. That was a lie. That was a lie. What a lie. This is the case that's been all over the front pages of the paper, all over the television, all over the radio, and the Prime Minister said, I'm not familiar with the details of that case. Liar. Absolute lie. Here is Ray on Starmer.
I was at work and they were just laughing about it, just thinking, where's he been for the last 7 months, 8 months? You know, he said, your wife's raised picture's been all over the place. I mean, he must be the only person in the world probably who doesn't know. I was getting emails and text messages from Australia and letters from Australia, Canada, America, all over the place, across Europe.
Donald Trump was talking about it the other day. Donald Trump was talking about it a couple of days ago. You know, you're getting talked about in the White House. So what the Prime Minister there was doing, his publicity advisors had told him to feign ignorance. Yeah, that's what they did. They thought that was the way out of this tricky situation. Pretend you don't know about it, Keir. I mean, embarrassing, an insult to our intelligence. And, you know, Raymond, I think the way he just laughs about it, I mean, respect to him, but if I was him, I'd be absolutely furious. Well, I think he is deep down.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a difficult situation, you often, you know, use that as a coping mechanism. Better to laugh than cry, as they say, right? But I think it's absolutely shameful that Keir Starmer pretended that he didn't know the details of this case. Of course, he knows the details of this case. Now, Keir Starmer said, you know, of course, I believe in free speech, but I do not believe in incitement of violence. But I do think that, first of all, the fact that she took that down after a few hours, has medically diagnosed PTSD and whatnot, that really should have been taken into account. And second of all, I really don't think that we have the threshold right in this country as to what constitutes incitement of violence. If it's in America, it's got to have a time and a place. So if someone tweeted online and said, right, everyone come meet at this hotel at 7 o'clock, we're going to burn it down, that would be quite different to what she said, which was far more general. That was said before any riots started. And then when the riots did start, Lucy was tweeting to condemn the riots and discourage people from getting involved in them. She had an outburst, as you say. She very sadly lost a 19-month-old baby because of an NHS mistake. You can understand that she would have been shocked and horrid when she sees that 3 beautiful, innocent little girls have been murdered.
As a lot of mothers did around the country. We all did. We all did.
And it wasn't a nice tweet. She's
apologised. She doesn't feel good about it.
It was a mistake. She went out, walked the dogs, cooled her head down a bit, and then came home and thought that wasn't a nice thing to say and took it down. I'm sorry, but there is just no justification whatsoever for her being in prison for 31 months.
I don't care what anyone writes on Twitter. No one should go to jail for what they write.
There are grooming gang perpetrators who have raped children who spend less time in prison than her. And the judge that refused to reduce her sentence, that is the same judge that did agree to reduce the sentence of Lord Ahmed of Rotherham.
And at least 4 more serious sex offenders he reduced their sentences. His name's Lord Justice Holroyd.
Yes.
He's very happy to reduce the sentences of sex offenders, rapists, paedophiles, but not happy to reduce the sentence of Lucy Connelly, who wrote some hurty words on Twitter. Make of that what you will. Now, finally, for our paper review, front page of The Sun, just in case there it is, Doctor Who exterminated, and this is the Doctor Who star Ncuti Gatwa has been axed by the BBC after 2 series. Woke storylines have seen the sci-fi programme's ratings plummet, but the final straw for BBC bosses apparently came when he pulled out of the Eurovision Song Contest on last Saturday, at the last moment, because he was due to sort of introduce the British judges there, because he was furious that Israel qualified, and because Israel was in it, he didn't want to be any part of it. So a little bit of anti-Israel, possible anti-Semitism there. So bye-bye, Ncuti. No one cares.
Yeah, nobody cares.
People care about Doctor Who, but he you know, off you go.
Well, Doctor Who has been ruined. It's just wackery and wokery now. I grew up with Doctor Who. My parents grew up with Doctor Who. People love this show, and it's been ruined with wokery. So thank God he is gone. And I think they definitely needed to take action with the whole Eurovision debacle here after what happened with Gary Lineker. I think the BBC have started to realise we cannot look like we are a place full of anti-Semites. So Gary Lineker's got the boot. He's gone. He's going to lose 800 grand, luckily, woohoo. And now this guy's gone as well.
Yeah, and the Eurovision Song Contest was a disgrace on Saturday. There was serious anti-Semitic scenes. You know, they call it pro-Palestine, anti-Semitic. You know, the stage was stormed when Israel was performing, and now the Austrian winner is saying that he thinks that Israel must not be allowed to take part next year. This is anti-Semitism, the Eurovision Song Contest. If it's going to be like this, if it's going to be horrible and political, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, then cancel the Eurovision Song Contest. There you go. Chloe, fantastic paper review. Thank you very much to Chloe Dobbs. When we come back, I believe we'll be joined by Benedict Spence. We'll go through some of the political stories. Stay tuned.
The folk in this village need to use the old Aussie trick to stop being swooped. You have to wear an ice cream tub on your head with eyes drawn on the back so they think you're...
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, standing in for the great Mike Graham. He's enjoying a few days in the sun. And this is the second hour of today's breakfast show. Just about survived the first hour. And coming up this hour, in a little while, we'll be talking to Robert Bates. He's the research director at the Centre for Migration Control. We need to discuss those migration figures. The population of Britain just swelled by 431,000. That's got to stop. Got an extraordinary story about the police You will not believe this story. It is absolutely shocking. Shocking. It's basically about a police commander who's a complete druggie, and he wrote the police's guidance on drugs, but he was taking lots of drugs himself. His case, his tribunal for dismissal comes up now, and guess how long he's been on full pay? Gets £125,000 a year. Guess how long he's been waiting for this tribunal? £125,000 a year. Hasn't been to work for 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. So he's at about, way over £500,000 free wages, not working, waiting for this tribunal. We'll be talking about that incredible case, a snapshot of the dysfunctional chaos of our coppers these days in just a little while. Also, we're talking about Ofgem. I think just about now, they will be announcing that the energy, it's happening now, this is breaking news, Ofgem, the energy watchdog, will be the energy price cap will fall. That's good news. Old Ed Miliband will be crowing about that, by 7% from July the 1st for a typical household in England, Scotland and Wales. So no doubt Ed Miliband will hail that as a triumph for his green claptrap. But I betcha it's not as good news as you expect. We'll be talking to an expert about that. So all that to come in this hour. Before we go to my next guest, we're going to discuss some of the politics of the day with the brilliant Conservative commentator Benedict Spence. Here's a voice note from Liam, and it is on our friend Keir Starmer.
Morning, Kev. Liam from Kent. What is Free Gear up to? I mean, I know he likes a freebie, but what, he's just dishing out money now, dishing out islands. It's honestly, as a 30-year-old, it's making me concerned that when I get older in my life, what is actually going to be left? Like, we've got 4 more years of this, and the rate he's going, he might as well just stick the whole country up for sale. Like, he has got no idea of anything, absolutely anything. Him and that whole front bench, the only word I can use politely is they're a bunch of wombles. Like, it's disgusting. Have a great morning, though, Kev.
Cheers, Liam. I'm glad you call them a bunch of wombles. As you implied, I think we can all think of another name for them, a bunch of, as they say about Keir Starmer, he is a complete and utter lawyer. But let's go to my first guest here, Conservative commentator Benedict Spence. So welcome to the show, Benedict.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a bit hinged getting up so early. I'm not used to all of this, but we'll get through it. Look, can I talk to you first of all about something that I'm finding quite shocking? The big story of the day for me, or one of the major stories. Last night, with my jaw dropping, I watched Benjamin Netanyahu in a rage over that tragic, awful shooting of that poor Jewish couple in Washington. People saying it's alleged that the killer, the shooter, shouted "Free Palestine." Well, you can drop all that claptrap because he's on telly shouting it. "Free Palestine!" Lovely young Jewish couple about to get engaged, had been to a function at a Jewish building centre in Washington. They're working there for the Israeli embassy, and out they came. This guy shot them both in the back and then apparently shot them time and time again. I don't want to go into too graphic details, but it's worth knowing that this lovely girl tried to crawl away and he just shot her and shot her and shot her. And then when he was arrested, he shouted "Free Palestine." Benjamin Netanyahu, understandably in a rage about this, an attack on Israelis is an attack on Israel. And what he says, and I've got a lot of sympathy for this, is that it is the likes of, he actually mentioned them, Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Mark Carney, with their condemnations of Israel's behaviour in Gaza, their condemnation of this ongoing conflict and so on and so forth. He says that they are, and also I think it's Macron just called for the establishment of a Palestinian state. He said they are fueling the anti-Semitism that caused this killing. He directly blamed our Prime Minister, France's leader and Canada's leader for that double tragedy in Washington. Let's just remind ourselves of what a very furious Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said last night.
I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. Well, for 18 years, we had a de facto Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. And what did we get? Peace? No. We got the most savage slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Ministers Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history.
That Benedict, in my mind, it's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. He's talking about three allies and pinpointing our Prime Minister among this nest of villains who are siding with the wrong people. Your thoughts?
Yes, and I think it's justifiably righteous anger. Obviously, the Israelis came to understand that these Western countries were their allies, and increasingly they look rather uncertain about that. It's not helped, of course, by the fact that Macron and indeed the British government have been talking quite openly now about the possibility of recognising an independent state of Palestine whilst this operation is still ongoing, whilst Hamas is still embedded in Gaza. I completely sympathise with Benjamin Netanyahu, especially in the aftermath of this dreadful murder. And I must just sort of talk about it just for 2 seconds. I mean, it is just so in character, isn't it, that this coward would walk up to two random Jewish people, not necessarily Israelis as far as this person knew, just two people leaving a Jewish function, so potentially not Israeli at all, and shoot them multiple times in the back. Yes, that's real glorious martyrdom and resistance fighting, that, isn't it? That's really standing up to the apartheid state. It's cowardly and it's disgusting, and it should be called out in no uncertain terms that this is in fact what globalizing the Intifada looks like. It means walking up to random members of the public and murdering them in cold blood when they don't even have a chance just because they're Jewish. And this ultimately is what this all boils down to, and we need to say this over and over again. This is why the state of Israel needs to exist and needs to defend itself quite so aggressively as it does, because the Jewish people cannot trust the rest of the world, the governments of the world, to look after its best interests. And we've seen this time and time again in Europe, in the Middle East, elsewhere. Governments, if given the opportunity, will happily abandon Jewish people to their fate, and that is why the State of Israel exists, whilst this conflict is still ongoing in Gaza. And we need to remember, again, it was started by Hamas going into Israel and murdering and raping and mutilating and abducting innocent civilians. They deliberately targeted civilians, not soldiers. Whilst this is ongoing, any backsliding, I think, is a disgraceful betrayal of Israel.
Totally, and but there's this little matter of 50 hostages still being held by Hamas, and until they are released, horrifically, they think as many as 30 of them are probably dead. But until those bodies and those last surviving hostages are given up by Hamas, I think Israel is justified in continuing the conflict. It's quite simple. It's quite simple. Netanyahu said, give us the hostages and we'll talk. If you don't, we won't. It's educational, I think, to compare and contrast the statements and the attitude of our Labour government after October the 7th and their recent statements as the Gaza conflict continues. So David Lammy, I remember back after October the 7th, was fairly restrained. Of course, you know, sort of saying, yes, this was horrific and we defend Israel's right to defend itself. Here's Keir Starmer just after the 7th of October. Listen to this.
Everybody watching will be appalled and shocked by the senseless, cold-blooded murder of men, women and children. And this is terrorism, this is Hamas terrorism, and Israel has the absolute right to defend herself, and obviously there's an ongoing hostage situation. So on this, I think, you know, we, the opposition and the government, stand as one in standing with Israel.
Very sort of technocratish, saying the right things, but I wouldn't say his heart and soul is in that. Now let's watch David Lammy a couple of days ago in the House of Commons. Have a look at this.
Netanyahu's government is planning to drive Gazans from their homes into a corner of the Strip to the south and permit them a fraction of the aid that they need. Yesterday, Minister Smodrick even spoke of Israeli forces cleansing Gaza. Destroying what's left of residents, Palestinians, being relocated, he said, to third countries. We must call this what it is. It is extremism. It is dangerous. It is repellent. It is monstrous, and I condemn it in the strongest possible terms.
Look, Benedict, at that deep-seated emotional rage. Labour politicians, when they're defending Israel, are incredibly uncomfortable. When they're attacking Israel, they just love it. You know, what is it about socialists? Why don't they like Jews?
I mean, ironically enough, it was the great socialist historian Eric Hobsbawm who talked about this, which was that whilst the Jews are an oppressed people, they can be co-opted for the cause of empowerment and the destruction of hierarchical structures and empires. Whilst they are oppressed, they are part of the coalition, if you like. But the problem with that is, of course, throughout history, Jews have also been scorned and looked down upon for being oppressed, and partly that's what feeds into it. That they are, as you know, the Nazis called them Untermensch, that they are not quite full citizens, that they are not quite full people, and that therefore they sort of deserve also to be part of that coalition. The real fury comes from socialists when Jews decide, I don't want to be oppressed, I don't want this for myself, I want self-determination, I want to look after myself. That the Jew who tries to strengthen himself is an even bigger threat to international socialism, because he's not trying to be part of the coalition, he's trying to look after himself after millennia of persecution. So that's why I think they often tend to occupy a particular niche in the mind of the political left. Israel is not a place that accepts the idea that everybody is the same and that all of these toxic structures have to be torn down. It is one that very overtly goes out and says, no, we're going to establish our own structures, our own strength and our own priorities, because we do not trust the benevolence of the international community. That's not how this works at all. But you're right, to just sort of watch David Lammy with the very deliberately performative outrage. Yep. That's the thing with the pauses, where he looks around the room.
Cleansing! Cleansing!
doing his sort of, I'm going to have my Churchill moment, and I'm going to be very dramatic and bombastic. And the thing is, nobody thinks ethnic cleansing is a good thing. Nobody does. But do these people care for 1 second when Azerbaijan did it to Armenia just 2 years ago? No. We still have full diplomatic relations with Azerbaijan. Nothing happened there. Does anybody care about what's currently going on in Sudan, which is much bigger than what's going on in Israel or Gaza? No, nobody cares about that. It's only this one particular conflict that they always come back to, and they feel so strongly the rest of the world can go hang as far as they're concerned, as long as they can criticize this one.
Absolutely, and let's talk about the BBC's coverage of this. Now, I went through the papers this morning, and there's not much coverage of what Netanyahu said last night. In fairness to the papers, I think it all happened a little bit late for them to make their additions. Now, the BBC website, the news website, of course, plenty of time for them to update. So I went through the BBC website this morning, their app, their news app, and there's a sort of perfunctory report of that horrific killing in Washington, just done along legal lines. A man was arrested last night, and then I thought, right, let's find their coverage of Netanyahu's extraordinary attack on the British Prime Minister. And by the way, I note the response has come there none from our Prime Minister. He's hiding behind the front door of number 10 Downing Street, typically. Now, I go through the BBC. Now, where is Netanyahu? Nowhere. They're not even covering it. They're not even covering what Benjamin Netanyahu said about our Prime Minister, that his attitude to the Gazan conflict, his pro-Palestinian tendencies, is fueling the hatred that caused those killings in Washington. An absolutely astonishing accusation by the leader of Prime Minister of Israel, and it's not even in the BBC news agenda. You know, the BBC is just this country's biggest hotbed of anti-Semitism. It's even worse than the Labour Party, and I can't say worse than that.
The problem with the BBC is, on all sorts of major issues, you're never sure if it's because of the bias of journalists or because of the inadequacy of their editorial judgment. I mean, to give you an example, I remember when the Pope died and having to sort of tune into the BBC's coverage and being confronted with the fact that the journalists who had been ascribed to this story genuinely didn't know what they were talking about in many cases and frankly didn't care. And it was just sort of oh, well, this is the shift that I'm doing today. I mean, the reporter who kept on referring to this thing called Catholicism all day, and you kind of sat there going, could somebody not have told him how to say this? But no, clearly nobody knows what's going on. And it's the same with this ultimately. Somebody, either because they've thought this is, this is propaganda, that this is Israeli propaganda and we shouldn't air it, or they probably honestly thought, oh, this isn't important, what we need is more sort of celebrity gossip or talking about Strictly or something like that. That's what needs to be on the BBC News website. And you can never tell with the BBC is the problem. You can never tell if it's in bad faith or if it's just generally somebody who is a bit of a half-wit making a bad decision. And the thing is, either of those explanations are pretty bad for the national broadcaster that, remember, we all have to pay for this service.
Yeah, I think, though, Benedict, you make a good point. I think it's a mixture of the two. I think they're editorially incompetent. Their head of news, Deborah Turnis, is absolutely useless. It's a mixture of incompetence and prejudice, anti-Israel prejudice. Their bias against Israel and pro-Palestine is just extraordinary. It's extraordinary. I don't know what has happened to journalism in the BBC, but it has gone down the chute. It's in an abyss of prejudice. It's extraordinary. Benedict, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Benedict Spence, their Conservative commentator. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Robert Bates, the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, about those legal migration figures. Britain's population just went up by nearly 500,000. That next. Stay tuned.
So we're still important. We're still
off
important.
The scale.
Yeah, I mean, we're still importing a city the size of Bristol.
Yeah.
Every year through migration alone, far exceeds, probably doubles the number of new houses that we're building. And as you say, about 100k higher than it was when it was considered to be exceptionally high during Brexit. It was about 350k, and that's one of the things that triggered the Brexit vote. So actually, 430k to me, having been in this business for a very, very long time, is still far, far, far too high.
This is kind of like somebody who was 25 stone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now let's go straight over to my next guest. He is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Morning, Robert.
Morning, Kev.
The Labour are sort of saying, let's all celebrate, let's get the bunting out, champagne corks popping, because the rate of net migration, legal migration, is falling. It's fallen quite significantly since last year. Fair enough. Yes, good. But not that good, really. It's better, but it's still not good. 431,000. That is how much our population swelled last year. We actually let in, last year, 2024, 948,000 foreigners with legal visas. So that's the best part of a million. Something like 517,000 left. So the net result is we're left with an increase of 431,000. That's legal. That's the population of Leeds, a city the size of Leeds. So while we're heading in the right direction, thanks, I might say, to moves by the Tories, not Labour, this is still an astonishing increase in the population of this country, a small island that is already chronically overcrowded. We've got to do something about stopping this altogether, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think the numbers over the last couple of years have been so terrifying. We've almost lost track of what a reasonable figure actually is. 431,000 is still far too high, even if you take into account the measures that the Labour Party are going to be bringing forward that might bring it down by another 100,000. We'll still be seeing immigration running way beyond what it was before the Brexit referendum, and of course people voted to take back control of their borders. This is something that politicians of both parties have allowed to slip for far too long. The system has exploded. It's become infected with interest groups and quangos who are pushing certain agendas. And the real losers in all of this is the British public, who have frankly had enough. It's number one issue in the country. Almost half the country want immigration either running at net zero or net negative. This is the point that we've reached now, and politicians just aren't listening.
Yeah, as I say, Labour said, oh, haven't we done well? Well, first of all, let's get that straight. Even the BBC was conceding when these figures came out yesterday that the reason for the reduction, they come down about 50%, the net migration figures, is because of measures that the Tories took, kind of panic measures towards the end of Rishi Sunak's desperate administration, finally cottoning on to the fact that maybe we're letting a few too many people in. The Tories have been letting in about 1 million a year. It's ridiculous. So these are measures taken by the Tories. Labour are trying to claim credit, but even the Beeb is saying nothing to do with Labour. So that leaves us with the worrying fear that Labour have done nothing and will continue to do nothing. So next year, or this year as it proceeds, we'll probably get about the same increase, won't we?
Absolutely. I mean, they trumpeted this white paper, and of course, it was only a week ago Keir Starmer was talking in those very strident terms, identifying some of the problems that have resulted from mass migration and the community that have been strained, the relations that have been kind of somewhat hamstrung, unfortunately, as a result of this huge churn in the population. But there is no desire from anyone on the front bench to take these measures any further. I think they think that the British public would be happy with figures running at 100, 200,000. No, that isn't going to cut it anymore. What we've seen over the last 5 years was an unprecedented warp speed of mass migration to a level that this country has never seen, and we need to start recognising that we have seen such a huge change in the population in just those last 4 years. 1 in 25 people now living in the country arrived in the last 4 years. It's an astronomical statistic that by the Centre for Policy Studies. And this is the kind of level of transformation that's taken place because the Tories allow this issue to get way out of hand. Yes, it is their steps to close that dependent loophole that has brought these figures down, but it was them that introduced it in the first place as well. So they cleaned up their own mess.
Indeed. Let's talk quickly about illegal migrants crossing the Channel. Now, for something like about a week, we went through this unusual calm, nil, naught every day, and then about 3 days ago, 49, well, no big deal there. All the lefties going, you see, Reform UK won't like this, there's nobody coming across, you see. Anyway, 2 days ago, guess how many came across? 820, the record for the year. So, and still they come. This is out of control. This seriously is out of control, and Starmer's doing nothing about it. He's got to stop saying, smash the gangs, smash the gangs. It's not working. They haven't smashed any gangs. They haven't even found any gangs. And even if they do smash gangs, that won't stop the migrants coming. There'll be new gangs tomorrow. The migrants are the customers. This is supply and demand. He needs to do something about the supply. Stop the migrants, deter the migrants, send them the message that once you get here, you don't stay here, then they'll stop coming.
Exactly, but the very first thing he did when he became Prime Minister, of course, was scrap the one thing that might have made people think twice before coming across the Channel. The Rwanda plan, of course, wasn't perfect. Whilst we remained in the ECHR and had the Human Rights Act, we would have faced a lot of appeals. But it was at least recognising that basic human instinct that if you don't want someone to do something, you have to deter them from doing it. It's got way out of hand. I don't think the Labour Party have actually got a plan. I think they've given up on trying to solve it. And we will see probably about 50,000 to 60,000 crossing the Channel this year, which is, you know, a record year, something that has completely escalated beyond all recognition from where it was in 2018. Absolutely.
And, of course, a couple of days ago, we learnt, courtesy of the Sun newspaper, that we've now got a migrant dog. A German Shepherd dog that came over on a small boat is now being kept in a sort of quarantine kennel in Deal in Kent. And I want to know, Robert, what exactly what war and torture does that dog claim it was escaping?
Well, I'm sure the human rights lawyers will be able to find something that very can create these arguments. But you know, we're able to detain the animal. The policy needs to be, when an individual comes into the country, breaks into this country, they're not put in hotels where they can go in black communities and wander around and disappear. They need to be detained and then deported forthwith.
Detain and deport, that's it. You know, people say, oh, return them to France. Well, that is a whole Pandora's box of problems. I get that. Personally, I can't see why we can't turn them round in the middle of the Channel, but I keep being told that if you turn the boats round, well, actually, if you let the boats continue to Britain in the middle of the Channel, if you escort them in, that's not at all dangerous. If you turn the boats round, apparently, and send them back to France, that's lethal. That could be lethal. So I get, you know, I do kind of understand why maybe they're not going to go down that path. The Royal Navy won't help. So my solution is this. As soon as you get here, you are detained and then you are deported. We're a generous nation. You're going back to your home country. We'll even pay for the air ticket. How about that? If they get that message, they'll stop coming.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we do far too many enforced returns. We've seen a massive drop-off in the number of people who are actually deporting against their will. These numbers that the Labour Party keep trumpeting about returning a record number of people, most of them have been paid to go. Most of them are voluntarily left with a big lump sum in the back pocket. They haven't been detained and deported. Our detention facilities are woefully inadequate. They need a huge upscaling. We need immigration enforcement to have a much bigger budget. It needs a five-fold increase, really. The figures that are being floated around, it's woefully inadequately under-resourced, and there just simply isn't the resources needed to actually do the processing of such huge numbers of people that do need to take place.
It's an absolute shambles, Robert, but it's always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Robert Bates there from the Centre for Migration Control. Let me know your thoughts on this, both legal and illegal. I mean, it's out of control, isn't it? 0344 499 1000, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on the same number. But it'd be good to chat personally. It's good to talk on Talk. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, I'm going to be talking to my friend Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard detective, chief inspector, about the most extraordinary police. I mean, we get a lot of extraordinary police stories, but this one is a doozy. Stay tuned for it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, as I just said before the break, we're going to talk about one of the most extraordinary police stories you will ever hear. It surrounds Commander Julian Bennett, a very high-flying officer, well-regarded. He wrote the Metropolitan Police Force's drug strategy for 2017 and 21 as a commander for the Territorial Policing Unit. He now stands accused of being a bit of a druggie himself. People have told his neighbours were telling of his flat stinking of cannabis. Apparently he's accused of turning up for work on magic mushrooms stoned out of his head. So no wonder he was able to write such a good drugs strategy for the police force. He knew all about the subject. He was an expert on a number of levels, allegedly. Now, he in 2020 refused to take a drugs test, to give a blood sample, and for that reason he was suspended, and his case comes up next week at a police appeals tribunal. That is next week, I think, beginning of June anyway. And so after his failure to take a blood test, a drugs test, he was suspended. Now, he's been waiting for this tribunal for 5 years. 5 years on full pay. The guy gets £125,000 a year. It's considerably over £500,000 given to that guy waiting for this tribunal. That's a disgrace. That in itself is a disgrace. Let's talk to former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Hi, Mike. As I said earlier, Mike, this is a doozy, this one, isn't it? Julian Bennett. How did it take so long for this guy to finally come to his tribunal?
Well, it's quite an incredible story, isn't it? And this is the commander who was known in the Met as Sacker, because he sacked so many junior officers who were dealt with far quicker than him. And when you look at this, it took 4 years from 2020 when he did a very simple thing, refused a drugs test. That is a gross misconduct matter. Last year, they held a hearing and found him guilty. But bizarrely, they didn't find him guilty of refusing the drugs test. They found him guilty of lack of integrity. But he'd never been charged with lack of integrity. So a clever lawyer said, well, He was never charged with that, so you can't find him guilty of that. So we find ourselves another year down the track. And as you said, he is on £125,000 a year. But rest assured, they cannot take your pension away when you're in the police, because you pay for that yourself. You pay 10% of your salary. So whatever happens in June, he will still be on about 70 or 80 grand pension. But what will get junior officers is how ruthlessly and swiftly they are dealt with. And then they see senior officers, and I saw several of them commit offences, whether they're disciplined or not, and then able to swan away. And this really does get to the heart of those junior officers, those PCs and sergeants and inspectors who are really working at the bottom. They make a mistake and they're brutally dealt with and kicked out.
And neighbours of this guy in his heyday said that I mean, this is their allegation. I'm assuming he probably contests this, but we don't quite know. But they have reported that his flat, his home, stank of cannabis before breakfast. So this guy, the implication here is this guy was getting stoned off his face before going in to work for the police as a commander. What the hell is going on, Mike?
Kevin, it defies belief, doesn't it? And he freely admits, he claims he took it for some sort of medicinal purposes, and it was a former flatmate who was actually in his flat who, disclosed what was going on. There's also allegations of magic mushrooms. But you wonder why the police make crazy decisions. You wonder why the police aren't out catching burglars and robbers and stuff. And then you think this is a senior officer who's directing. His job was to direct, PCs, sergeants, inspectors, the whole police stations he was in charge of across London. That's what the territorial policing does, that day-to-day policing. And here you have a man taking controlled drugs who's in charge of them all.
And his case in particular, by the way, it was Dame Cressida Dick, remember her? She was the commissioner, the police commissioner, who was presiding over all of this. He at one point offered to resign to her, but that was turned down. He also said that he was taking CBD, cannabidiol, to treat facial palsy. I'm sure that that's true. But his case has it triggered great calls for a complete reform of the disciplinary system in the police, because of course when you're charged as a serving officer with serious offences, you are suspended while you await your hearing. That's fair enough, but not if that hearing is 5 years hence. So they're going to have to speed this system up, aren't they?
It is very true. I was accused of a discipline matter, and it took 6 months to clear up what was utter nonsense. Why is it taking so long? And all those officers who are investigating sometimes nonsense that officers are alleged to have done, they're obviously not on the streets protecting the public. And all the time as well. And the officer who's been accused, who's suspended or put on restricted duties just working in a police station, they're months and months and months of not doing exactly the same. They're not out protecting the public. So something needs to be done here where they can review these cases very quickly and deal with them. Because, as I say, in this case, this Julian Bennett case, take a drugs test. That is a legal requirement as a police officer. He didn't do it. How much more evidence do you need to find somebody guilty?
Yeah, fire him at that point. Fire him at that point. Take this test or you're fired. It's fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead they wait 5 years and pay him 125 grand a year. Unbelievable, Mike. Thank you for bringing that story to our attention. I may well see you later. Thank you very much for your excellent contribution as always. That's former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Before we go to break, there's another voice note here. This is from Darren, and he's talking about the Great British Strike. Is that? Yes, let's go.
Good morning, Kev. Darren from Bradford. Just wondering, are you guys promoting the Great British Strike that's happening tomorrow all over the country in multiple towns? People standing up against mass migration, etc. Just wondered if you guys were promoting this at all, or do you even think it's a good idea? Thanks for that. Great show as usual.
Well, Darren, by an extraordinary coincidence, at 8:30 we will be joined by the organiser of the Great British National Strike, Richard Donaldson. This is a call for workers all over the country who work on a Saturday, of course, to withdraw their labour as a protest against this awful government, against their migration policies, against their betrayal of the 17.4 million people who voted Brexit, against their betrayal of this country, against their incompetence, against their awfulness. Big protest tomorrow. Richard Donaldson, the organiser of that, a former British Army soldier, father and husband, will join us at 8:30. We'll find out all about that demonstration then. Let's go to break now, and much still to come, so stick around.
So we're still important. We're still important. Yeah, I mean, we're still importing the city the size of Bristol.
Yeah.
Every year through migration alone, far exceeds, probably doubles the number of new houses that we're building, and as you say, about 100k higher than it was when it was considered to be exceptionally high during Brexit. It was about 350k, and that's one of the things that triggered the Brexit vote. So actually, 430k to me, having been in this business for a very, very long time, is still far, far, far too high.
This is kind of like somebody who was 25 stone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Morning Glory with me, Kevin O'Sullivan, in for Mike Graham, who's away sunning himself at a very glamorous destination. Now, let's talk about energy. The Ofgem, the energy regulator, has announced its new price cap, and looks ostensibly to me like very good news. There's it's going to fall. The new cap will bring it down to £1,720 per year, falling from the current cap of £1,849. That means that a typical bill will now fall by £129. I'd imagine that old crazy Ed Miliband will be crowing about this. Yeah, I told you, that his green claptrap is really starting to work. I wonder if that is the case. So let's find out what this is really all about from the former head of Energy UK, Angela Knight. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Good morning.
Well, can you cut through the details here and tell me what this means? Is this? I mean, it sounds like good news. Is it down to the green policies? What's it all about, Angela?
Gas price, and what it is that the gas prices have stabilised and been generally falling worldwide, and we're seeing the benefit here. So if I look even further ahead, it looks like this gas stabilisation is going to mean that something like this 1,700 of your bill is more likely to stay at that level rather than get too much increased when we come to the autumn and winter. I mean, there is an inevitability that in winter the prices will go up, in summer they'll go down, because demand goes down in summer and demand goes up in winter. But nevertheless, if we're looking ahead, that stabilisation of the gas price means that we can look to bills more around this 1,700, 1,800 that has been the case in previous years.
So this is to do with international forces in terms of gas prices. That is rather fortuitous for our net zero secretary. He will no doubt claim it's all down to his green initiatives, but you're saying it just isn't.
I'm saying it just isn't. His green initiatives, whether you agree with them or not, or are somewhere in between, these add costs to our bills. They add them in several ways. Firstly, because actually the sheer price and cost of building wind farms is quite heavy, and inevitably we pay for that on the bill. And secondly, because we're now having to do big investments in the grid that moves electricity around the country, because our new stations, these wind farms, are not in the same place as the old stations, and there's all this problem of getting power anyway from the wind farms around Scotland into the south of England. So, you know, the green energies and the green policies are expensive, and unfortunately they're expensive long term as well as short term. So whilst we do get fluctuations in our bills because of gas, and particularly as there's gas heating in our homes, the reality of the whole of the programme to move us over to net zero is one which will embed in higher costs for the long term.
Well, I'm assuming, Angela, that if Crazy Ed Miliband's master plan comes into effect, our need in his mind, in his, if you'll excuse me, in his deranged mind, our need for gas will be steadily reduced. So in future, if gas prices come down internationally, that will affect us less, and therefore we won't feel the benefit of this kind of reduction in international prices so much in the future. So perhaps this is something to worry about rather than celebrate.
Well, I'm actually quite a believer in us being more self-sufficient and less reliant on importing, whether it's gas or whether it's electricity. But if that is going to be the case, then firstly, to be more self-sufficient, we need to use our own gas rather than block it off, which has happened and is increasingly happening with the decisions about the North Sea. And secondly, what we've also got to do is we need to build more reliable, continuous power stations here in the UK. Because what the figures never tell you is that we're increasingly importing more and more electricity from continental Europe, who actually have very much the same problem as ourselves in many of the countries. And that is that, you know, they not only got the green program, but at the same time, they've got big investments to be had, and the population is wanting more and more power. So if we are going to be self-sufficient, firstly, we need to accept that gas is going to be here for the long term, certainly in part. Our reliance on it might not be as big as it is at the moment. But secondly, that we need to actually build not more wind farms, but right now we need to build these small-scale nuclear reactors, put them in the same place as our old nuclear reactors, in order to have control of our own continuous low-carbon power here in this country. So, you know, it's broad questions, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit complicated in answering them. But the reality is that the Miliband program is one that is going to result in us being both having more expensive power and relying more on imports. And I think that is dangerous for us as a country, whereas there are other ways in which we can approach this and still have a lower carbon future.
So what you're saying here, Angela, is today, I mean, mark my words, I'll give you this firm prediction, Ed Miliband will spend the rest of today boasting about how his green master plan is coming to in effect. I promised you reduced prices, and look, they're going down. Just as I said, we shouldn't listen to a word of that.
I would have said, don't listen to that. I mean, it's going to be impossible not to listen to it, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes.
But the question is, you know, that you're saying to me, is that correct if he says that? And the answer is that isn't correct. That's grabbing at an apple and saying it's a pear. The reality is not that. We're on an expensive path to a lower carbon future, and I think that this is one that has never been honestly described to the British people. I still think that some will no doubt sign up to it. But I do believe that in this area, as in many other areas, it really deserves not just honesty from the politicians to the population, but also a much broader description of what it is that is involved. And if we want to have that secure and low carbon provision of electricity, then we have to do it a different way. We have to look at these small-scale nuclear reactors and get on with them rather than just talk about them. And secondly, we also have to accept that we've got gas for the long term, and therefore we're much better to use our own gas and our own North Sea than bring it in from a long way around the world.
So I would say, Angela, to round off this informative conversation, I would put the question, where is the energy independence in constantly importing energy from other countries? I believe we import quite a lot of energy from America, and that energy is sourced from fracking, from shale gas. We polish our halos and go, oh, we wouldn't frack, that will cause earthquakes, that's bad for the environment. That's rubbish, by the way, but that seems to be our reasoning, and yet we have no qualms about importing American shale gas. It's ridiculous. So where is the independence in that? And can I just put a general point to you? It seems to me, from my inexpert point of view, everything that Ed Miliband says, his entire plan, his entire green initiative, they're incoherent. They don't make any sense.
Yes, well, if we start off with the importing, we import gas and electricity. We import gas, as you rightly say, from Qatar. We bring it in from the US. We bring it in from other places. Electricity we import, but of course much closer to home, from France, Belgium, and so on. Well, we have a geological structure in some parts of this country which imply that we could frack gas here, and what's more, we could do it carefully, and we could do it efficiently, and we can do it cleanly. We haven't done it. What we should do is put a carefully controlled trial in place. Pick, an appropriate part. So there's several places to use. Pick an appropriate part. Put the scientists and the engineers in charge. Get rid of the emotion. Do it from a practical perspective, because it certainly makes sense to see if we have got it to look what we can explore here locally. So that is one of the things that we absolutely have to do. And I'm afraid I've forgotten what your second question was.
Well, it was just that Ed Miliband's proposals are incoherent. I think we can agree. We can just agree on that. Don't forget, they've just discovered what they think may be Europe's biggest reservoir of shale gas underneath Lincolnshire. That would be a good place to start. And maybe in the future, where we have sources of shale gas, as we did, I think, over in Cumbria and Lancashire, when we decide not to shale gas that because for virtue signalling reasons, don't fill the shaft in with concrete so no one can ever do it again, which is what the Tories did. We are trapped in a sea of madness with these politicians. We really are. Angela, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Angela Knight there, former head of Energy UK. Let's take a call, shall we? This is David in Gloucestershire. Hello, David. Morning.
Morning, Kevin. How are we all?
Well, very tired, thanks. I'm not used to getting up at 4 in the morning, but there you go.
You were last night. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was on last night as well. Yeah, I actually live here.
Double shift, busy boy. Well done. Right, get to my point very quickly.
Yeah, go on.
Starmer is a traitor, and that's the only word I can use. The Chagos deal. I didn't realise till you said this morning that we have got to tell our enemies, Mauritius, China, that we may launch warplanes on a mission. What the hell is he playing at? That is a disgrace. It is a traitor. The man should be picked up and charged with treason. Now, I'm sorry, there's no other answer.
I think you're right, David. He doesn't like Britain. His mate, Richard Hermer, the Attorney General, hates Britain even more. They're giving away these Chagos Islands for some kind of North London Guardian reading dinner party guilt trip reason. Old colonialism, imperialism. We must give these islands back to their rightful owners. Well, Mauritius isn't the Chagos Islands' rightful owner. It's never had sovereign control of the Chagos Islands. It's 1,300 miles away, massive distance, about the distance of London to Marrakesh. It's ridiculous. Not only are we giving them to Mauritius for mysterious reasons, we're saying, as well as giving them to you, would it be okay if we gave you 9 billion quid? We're doing that as well. The deal is absolutely mystifying, baffling. I have no idea what it's all about, apart from the only possible reason, as you say, David, is a kind of treacherous hatred of Britain and these old lefties trying to assuage their guilt about British colonialism. It's pathetic.
I think it's more dangerous than that. I think it's all planned. I know you don't.
No, it's not planned, mate. He's too thick for that. He's not some kind of sinister genius. He's close to being a moron.
No.
Rubbish, David. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. That guy couldn't plot a dinner party, a garden party, let alone an international betrayal of Britain. He hasn't got the brains.
I'm sorry, I really do believe you're wrong about that.
Hang on a second, David. So are you saying that you think Keir Starmer's a very clever man?
I don't think he's a clever man, he's a useful idiot, and that's the truth.
Well, if he's a useful idiot, he hasn't got the brains to plot this international betrayal of Britain, has he?
Well, he's being told what to say.
Who by? Who by?
Blair, to start with. I would go Blair, Mandelson.
I'll take that. He's the puppet of those people. I agree with that. But trust me, mate, what we are in the hands of is an incompetent idiot. He could not plot a garden party, a children's tea party. So don't worry about that. But I agree with you totally. He has betrayed this country 3 times this week. Brexit, now the Chagos, and also the World Health Organization. It is extraordinary, an extraordinary act of treachery by our Britain-hating Prime Minister. We agree on that, David. Great call. Thanks, mate. Call me again. David in Gloucestershire. When we come back, what are we doing after the news? To get somebody to... Politics with John Rentoul. I'm going to have a row with him like Mike does. Stay tuned for that.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a 5 in a pot and you can go and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. And they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it a channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the Scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is, what is this, second, third hour? I can't remember. I think it's a third. I've been here since about 4 in the morning and I'm discombobulated, but enjoying the show. Hope you are. Hope you're finding my company just vaguely acceptable. I am enjoying yours. Now, in this third hour, in a little while, we'll be talking about these prison reforms. In other words, we're not really going to be sending anybody to prison anymore. The Labour Party is busy cancelling punishment. So from now on, it's going to be a new system. You can break the law, you can commit crimes, but we're going to eliminate the punishment process. Or at least we're going to make punishments a lot lighter. We'll be talking about that in just a little while. Also, as I just said to you just now, we're going to talk to the organiser of this great British national strike that happens tomorrow, Saturday, where Saturday workers have been asked to withdraw their labour and join a massive protest generally against this awful government. Might go myself. Let's all go, shall we? So we'll be talking to Richard Donaldson, the organiser of the Great British National Strike, around about 8:30. And later we will be returning to Benjamin Netanyahu's accusations that Starmer is being blamed for emboldening anti-Semitic sentiments and attackers. So that is all coming up in the next 60 sizzling minutes. In just a little while, I'm going to go to the chief political commentator of The Independent, John Rentoul. But before we do that, a quick voice note from Ray, and it's on migration.
Morning, Kevin. Ray from Newcastle. Is the net migration not came down because of all of the British people leaving due to this Labour government? Just a thought.
Yeah. I mean, all those people leaving are mostly billionaires and millionaires. They're taking all their money with them. Lots of foreign millionaires leaving the country because Starmer's taxing them to the hilt. So we're losing our wealth creators, our wealth makers. It's all going downhill fast, folks. Good voice note, Ray. Thank you very much. Right, let's go to the chief political commentator at The Independent, John Rentoul. Morning, John.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It says here, have massive row with John Rentoul.
Yeah, but it also says, it gives me a list. I've been given a list of what you want to talk about. And unfortunately, I think we're going to agree on almost all of them. But
yeah, well, I thought it might
let's give it a try.
Yeah, I thought it might be fun to agree on everything. I am going to change one of the list, but we'll talk about that in a second. First of all, I mean, this giveaway of the Chagos Islands. I mean, everybody is utterly baffled and mystified by it. I can't see what we get out of it. It is extraordinary. Somebody, Chloe Dobbs, who was in here earlier, she said it's a bit like sort of saying, I'm going to give you my house to live in and I'll pay you the rent.
It's mad.
So you know, it is just crazy, isn't it? This giveaway.
Well, I think it's very significant that that nobody can explain it properly. Keir Starmer was in a terrible position yesterday, trying to explain the cost and making up numbers and talking gibberish about net cost of something coming to 3.4 billion, whereas if you just look at the figures in the treaty, any normal accounting would say that's 12 billion pounds over 100 years. I mean, obviously, that's not a huge amount every year, but it's embarrassing as to why we have to pay anything at all.
Yeah, as I say, we go to the Mauritians, who apparently, when we first said, we're going to give you these Chagos Islands, they were a bit bemused by it, but they sort of went, oh, yeah, all right then. I mean, they've never had sovereign control of it, so they're all right then. And it's 13...
No, I don't think it's quite like that, Kevin.
Yeah,
but
they've
been agitating to get a hold of these islands for a long time.
Yeah, OK, well, but anyway, when we finally say, OK, you can have them, then we say, OK, if we give you 9 billion quid as well. It's an absurd deal, and the only reason I can think of for it is that you got these old North London lefties, Starmer and Hermer, who are racked by some kind of colonial guilt, and we must give these foreign territories back to their rightful owners. But I'm not sure Mauritius is their rightful
Mauritius
owners.
isn't the rightful owner.
Exactly.
That's the problem. I mean, it would be a perfectly legitimate and normal agreement if Mauritius had a proper claim to these islands, for us to give it back to Mauritius and then pay them for leasing the base. I mean, that is a normal arrangement that happens around the world, that you lease back a base, a military base, if you want to use it. But the problem is, Mauritius's claim to the islands is extremely weak. The legal opinion was advisory from the International Court, and so I don't understand why we feel we have to abide by it and why we have to give it back. I mean, well, not give it back, give it to them, because they've never had it.
Well, this is a classic, to my mind, an unnecessary political own goal.
Yeah.
This wasn't something that Starmer had to pursue, but he decided to do it, and has now scored a spectacular own goal. Why does he keep self-harming himself with these unnecessary, poor decisions?
Well, that is the puzzle, and it's going to be hung around his neck for the rest of his time as Prime Minister. I mean, it's going to be like Gordon Brown selling the gold, which wasn't a very significant issue at all, but it became symbolic of Gordon Brown sort of being irresponsible with the public finances. This is going to be similar. There are obviously there may be good secret reasons for why we want to do this deal, because the Conservative government wanted to do it. To be honest, they suspended the negotiations for a bit, but by the time of the election, they were negotiating to give the islands
But why,
away.
John? Why did it was Cleverly, wasn't it, who got the ball rolling when he was Foreign Secretary for the Tories? Why were they interested? Well, why? Why bother? Just sort of say, hey, Mauritius, that's a no. Bye-bye. Leave it at that.
Yeah, I really don't know. There may be some reasons to do with national security. I mean, the Americans have said it's fine by them, which it would be. They get a free military base out of it, and they don't even have to pay anything. Yeah, it is a mystery, and it's going to be damaging to Keir Starmer for the rest of his time.
Yeah, unless people start to say, oh, it's a small island no one had ever heard of that's a long way away, you'd be surprised. I can tell from this switchboard. The people of Britain are very energised about this. They're very angry about it. He's done something once again that has infuriated the population of this country. Why does it, again, I've got to ask, why does he keep doing this?
And he's incapable of explaining why. I mean, this is
not a good combo, is it?
If there was a good reason for it, then I would be sympathetic to him. But there isn't a good reason that he can give me that I can come on to your show and defend. So it's incredibly damaging.
Let's move on. I was going to cut out this the Israel story because I talked extensively to Benedict Spence about it earlier, but I would get your quick take on it. Benjamin Netanyahu last night launched an extraordinary attack on Starmer, Macron and Carney for their anti-Israel rhetoric, which he says is fueling the kind of Jew hatred that resulted in that awful killing in Washington last night. It was extraordinary. Starmer has yet to respond, but David Lammy's attack on Israel in the Commons a couple of days ago, was a real fire and brimstone thing. And does Netanyahu have a point?
No, I don't. I don't think he does, and I think he's in danger of making the mistake that he accuses other people of making, of confusing criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. I mean, I think it is perfectly legitimate to criticise the conduct of the war in Gaza.
Yeah, that old lefty excuse. Yeah, I criticise Israel, but that doesn't mean I'm anti-Semitic. Oh, who used to say that all the time? Oh, I remember old Magic Grandad, Jeremy Corbyn. When they say that, they're lying. Most socialists who go, I just reserve the right to criticise Israel. I'm not anti-Semitic. Yes, you bloody well are.
Well, I think that is true in some cases, but it's not. You can't accuse Mark Carney and Keir Starmer of anti-Semitism on this. I just don't think that's right. No way, Kevin. You know, the war, this conflict in Gaza.
What about David Lammy?
Talking about things.
What about David Lammy? What about David Lammy? Do you think he's anti-Semitic?
I think David Lammy's rhetoric was a little bit overheated.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't think that was sensible, but it wasn't anti-Semitic.
But it was too enthusiastic. That would be my.
Well, I think that is the problem. He was trying to appease the sort of the Labour MPs who are really upset about the conduct of the war and won't give Israel the credit for the right to defend itself against a horrible terrorist outfit. But I mean, my argument with Netanyahu is that, you know, this war in Gaza is literally pointless. Because, I mean, where is it going to end, and how is it going to do any good? It's not going to improve Israel's security, because you can't destroy Hamas completely, because Hamas is really just an idea.
It seemed to be maybe they could destroy Hamas by turning Gaza into a car park, which is what they seem to be in.
Well, no, that wouldn't destroy it, though, would it, Kevin? That would just make things worse. It wouldn't get the hostages back. I mean,
that's my point. I take your point, John.
Are upset about the way he's conducting this war as well.
Yeah, but Hamas should release the hostages, shouldn't they?
Well, of course they should. They should never have taken them in the first place.
True. Well, let's move on. The migration figures, the legal migration figures, you know, lots of cheering. Hey, we're going in the right direction. They come down by 50%. Well, that's good news, but still the population of this country last year increased by the best part of 431,000 people. That is the population of a city the size of Leeds. That is too much. And you wonder, although we're heading in the right direction, will we continue to head in that direction? Because Labour, I think, I sense, are not perhaps quite so enthusiastic about cutting legal migration as the Tories latterly became. And the only reason...
Tories latterly became...
Well, yeah, latterly, yeah.
In their dying seconds.
Well, yes, I agree. But even the BBC is crediting this fall, this encouraging fall, to the Tories. It's nothing to do with Labour.
I mean, it is down to the Tories. Well, part of it is just down to the unwind of the post-Brexit surge. But I mean, a lot of it is due to measures taken by James Cleverly and Robert Jenrick with Rishi Sunak driving them from number 10. But that was just too little, too late. I mean, because it was the Conservatives who created the problem in the first place.
Well, I totally agree. When we talk about immigration, the scandal of the migration crisis, both legal and illegal, I think Labour really have to now take their share of the blame. But the big portion of the blame...
I tell you who should be blamed is Boris Johnson.
I totally agree with you.
All this talk about Boris Johnson making a comeback, as soon as you remind people who's responsible for 1 million people coming to this country every year, you know, his campaign for a comeback is going to
pathetic. There we go agreeing again, John. But Boris Johnson, forget it. The guy is not even a Tory. He's a Lib Dem at best. Very diffident about the migrant crisis. Never gave a damn about it. Allowed the rise and rise of wokery, and is a net zero claptrap maniac. So the fact that some of these Tories are going, let's bring back Boris. Well, I've got a better idea. Get yourself a decent leader who happens to be a Conservative. I mean, Kemi...
Yeah, well, they've got one. They've got...
No, I said decent. I said decent leader. Kemi Badenoch is a Conservative, but she's not a decent leader. Can we talk, perhaps we could have a row a bit about the Brexit betrayal earlier this week. What are your thoughts about what the Brexit
we disagree. We disagree. Yeah. This is great. No, it was a sensible adjustment of the relationship. Anything that makes trade with our biggest trading partner easier is obviously in our economic interest. And this is just a course correction, which is very much in the national interest. Which is that we had one of the other mistakes.
We've got to give them money again, John.
Was to have too hard a Brexit, whereas we could have had a softer Brexit, which would have been much more in line with what the British people voted for, because they were divided more or less 50-50.
They didn't. They voted to leave the EU. 17.
Hang
on a second.
It would have been
wait
better.
a second, John. Let me finish. When 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU, do you think that was a nuanced decision? Well, we'd like to leave, but remain very good friends. That's rubbish. Yeah. They just wanted to leave.
It was a nuanced. No, absolutely, it was a nuanced decision. There was nothing in there about the hardest possible Brexit and about cutting ourselves off from trading easily with the EU. There was a lot of talk then. I mean, there were some people on the leave side who were saying we shouldn't leave the single market, that we should leave the EU. We should stay in the single market.
Some people who didn't really get
there were quite a lot. And, these issues had not been explored at the time, and a lot of people wanted out of the political union, but they were perfectly happy having a good, solid economic relationship with the single market because they recognised that was in our interest, and that's what Boris Johnson denied them. Theresa May tried to give it to them. And it didn't work. But anything that moves us back to a closer economic relationship with the EU without going into any of the political arrangements is a good thing.
And do you think that the people of Britain, the people who voted to leave the EU, do you think that they really approve of what Starmer's done? Do you think that was a politically smart move by him? Do you think it, or do
Absolutely.
you, no, it wasn't. Politically,
yes, it was.
Politically, it probably has done for him.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, yeah.
No,
people around the country going, oh, it's so good he's done this. It's so good he's done this. You're deluding yourself, John. You really
he was
are.
very careful not to cross any of those red lines.
Yeah.
There's no return to freedom.
Yeah, right.
There's no.
Oh, yes. What about if you're under 30?
Well, no, that hasn't been.
That's free movement.
The whole point is that bit wasn't agreed because.
So there isn't going to be any under 30 free movement.
Well, not if it can't be agreed. Not if it can't be agreed on terms that Keir Starmer wants to agree.
He wants to cap it at 100,000, doesn't he? And the EU don't want to do that.
No, I don't think.
And by the way,
far too high. No. It was no. He wants it to be equivalent, so that as many people come to the UK as go to the EU.
He's clueless,
in which case it would be immigration neutral. Now that would be a fine idea. Unfortunately, the EU hasn't agreed to that yet. Yeah. But maybe they will agree to it.
I'll tell you another thing. This was the great carrot, wasn't it? Look, it was brilliant. I've managed to negotiate the fact that you can all stand in the EU queue at passport control much quicker. It's the e-passport control system. Fantastic. You can go back into that queue. Well, the EU, Brussels, has got no right to negotiate that because this is left to individual nations. It's not an EU decision. So that is a complete shibboleth. It doesn't really exist. It's not going to happen.
Oh, well, no, I don't. I think it is going to happen because it was being negotiated anyway.
Only if we get agreement from individual nations.
Yeah, well, I think, but I mean, we're on our way to.
I don't care anyway. Nobody cares about that.
No, they do care about it. That's why it's. That's why you're arguing about it, Kevin. Because it actually matters to people.
I love standing in the queue with independent Brits and independent nations. You know,
but just because you're
proud to do it.
You're a weirdo doesn't mean everybody.
I'm not going back in the EU queue for love nor money. I'll tell you that. There you go, John. We managed to disagree at the end. Great to talk to you as always, mate. Chief political commentator at the Independent, John Rentoul. Let me know what you think about what John was saying. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we're going to be talking about these prison reforms, these punishment reforms, to former prison governor Vanessa Frake. So stand by for that.
like the foreign minister of Israel there, have seen this coming, not just for months, as he said, actually for years. This constant drip, drip, drip of anti-Israel propaganda put out by Hamas and other Palestinian factions, but so readily adopted by the left-wing media, the mainstream media in general, governments. Can't just blame the Labour government we have now. Even David Cameron, when he was Foreign Secretary, and in years before that, said outrageous things about Israel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Morning Glory with Kevin O'Sullivan, not with Mike Graham. Mike's away at a very glamorous destination, lucky sod. But he deserves this break. Works very hard, gets up at the crack of dawn at an unbelievably hideous hour. I can confirm that because I had to do it this morning. Although I'm not a stranger to this. I used to do weekend breakfast here. So it was great to be getting up at 3:30 in the morning again. Anyway, here we are. Let's talk about these punishment reforms, really. The fact that basically Labour now are going to cancel, axe, all sentences of less than a year. They say they're ineffective and there are more effective ways of punishing people for crime. That's rubbish. That's rubbish. You stick a middle-class person in jail for 6 months, they won't offend again, trust me. If they're a career criminal, you give them 9 months, water off a duck's back. I get that. But the idea that there is no use at all to sentences of less than a year, it's just not true. All of these reforms, what's it that the Justice Secretary ludicrously calls them? Prison outside of prison. You know, ankle tags, community service, unpaid work, banning from football matches, even if your crime's got nothing to do with football, banning or restricting your use of social media. All these punishments instead of prison are supposed to, you know, kind of revolutionise the way we treat people who break the law. But what they are actually is a charter for people who break the law. Lighter punishments for crime. This Labour government, unlike previous Labour governments, as Tony Blair said, tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. Keir Starmer, soft on crime, soft on the causes of crime. Well, let's talk to former prison governor Vanessa Frake. Morning, Vanessa.
Morning, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, basically, all of these reforms that the Sentencing Review Council have come up with, they're a sort of disguise, aren't they, for the fact that Labour had to come up, the government had to come up with some sort of way of not sending people to prison because our prisons are so chronically overcrowded. This is a national crisis. We haven't got enough cells to put people in, right?
Well, I don't disagree with you at all, Kevin. You know, for years, this government, previous governments have negated their responsibilities to prisons and prisoners and prison staff. And we are where we are because ministers stood up in Parliament and said, we're going to lengthen sentences for this crime, lengthen sentences for that crime, and didn't put any infrastructure in place. No more prisons, no more cells, no more staff, and a clear lack of investment in our prisons. So the government was kind of caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Because, you know, we can't have a justice system that completely breaks down where we can't put anybody in prison. Prison will always have a place in society for those that really warrant prison, those people that are put there to protect the public. And in doing that, you know, you say about the 12-month sentence. Well, they're not doing away with it completely. There will be exceptional circumstances to that.
Yeah, but I mean, that means very few people are going to get these sentences. And as I said earlier, you'll know this, Vanessa. If you put an old lag, a career criminal, in jail for 9 months, that is water off a duck's back. They couldn't care less. You put a middle-class person in jail for 9 months, they'll never forget. I mean, that will be a lesson learned on their part. So I'm not in favour of the abandoning of these sentences. But let's talk, if we can, Vanessa, about the very serious aspect of this kind of review of sentencing, and due to our overcrowded jails, they're talking about sentence reductions for good behaviour. Traditionally, that has been as much as half, but maybe a third. Now they're talking about sort of murderers and rapists potentially for good behaviour getting 2/3 of their sentences off. I mean, is this not just basically these people will end up getting inadequate punishments? Rapists will end up doing 2 years, that kind of thing. That can't be right, can it?
Well, I think you have to look at it a bit more in depth than just saying that. I think you have to remember that they have to work their way out. It's not a God-given right. And Shabina Mahmood was quite clear in her statement that those most serious offences will still do 2/3 of their sentence. And anybody convicted of terrorism offences will automatically not be included in that. It's a difficult one, and I understand that it's difficult for the public to see, but this report is to look at different ways of addressing reoffending behaviour. We can't go on just locking people up ad infinitum for the pettiest of things when there are other opportunities and greater needs that can be done in the community, such as drug users, alcohol abusers, people with mental health issues. Those are the things that need to be strengthened.
Yeah, enforced rehab, that's not a bad idea. That was one of the proposals for obviously drinkers and drug takers. So that I agree with that. Let me ask you this, Vanessa. When you were prison governor, how would you have felt personally about medical people, doctors coming in and injecting your prisoners with chemicals? I'm talking about sex offenders. How would you have felt personally about that?
Well, medical sides and prison sides are two different things. Look, at the moment it's volunteers. I do think that I have reservations about making it mandatory because I'm not sure how you would deal with that within a prison environment. The volunteer things, it's tablet form, and you have got to rely on those prisoners taking those drugs. If you don't take them, then it's going to be non-effective. So then you go into the realms of, well, what are you going to do? Hold people down and force it down their throat? Those are issues that would have to be very carefully considered. So I have reservations about making it mandatory. Of course, they're sex offenders. Absolutely, they should be chemically castrated. But in reality, it's how you manage that.
Yeah, and another aspect of the prison system that I think the government needs to look at very, very seriously. They've got to do something about recruitment, maybe make, I'm not normally in favour of increased pay packets in the public sector, but there's a staffing problem in terms of prison officers, isn't there? You have now got these vast prisons, many of which are little more than warehouses to hold people, and not enough staff. So they're on a tinderbox, aren't they? So do you think that one way to improve our creaking prison service would be somehow to recruit more officers, maybe give them better pay deals, and therefore make prisons a far better run?
I think you have to go the whole hog here. I think you have to have better, more robust vetting procedures. I think you have to recruit more staff. You have to have better training. At the moment, training for a prison officer is 5 weeks. Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, that's the lowest.
5 weeks?
It's 5 weeks. And you can join at 18. So, you know, think about that, that you're putting somebody with no experience at 18 in a very vulnerable position. And I think that should, if you're going to look at recruiting more staff, then you have to go the whole hog all the way through, and you have to continue that training through it. Because at the moment we're short of staff, yes, absolutely. So prisoners are being locked in their cells for 23 hours a day. They're not going to education. 80% of prisoners can't read and write. We know that's afflicted to repeat offending. You know, they're not going to programs to help them with their rehabilitation. And that is why we have the worst reoffending statistics in Western Europe. So, you know, there are many facets to the prison service, and you can't cure one right doesn't cure all.
Yeah.
It is right the way through, right across the board.
Absolutely, Vanessa. There's still a lot of work to be done on our prison system and our punishment system. Very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. That was Vanessa Frake, former prison governor. When we come back, got a voice note from Gaz. We'll play that. But also, we're going to talk to Richard Donaldson. He is the organiser of tomorrow's great national strike, which is basically a massive, great protest against this appalling government. So Richard next, and a voice note. So stick around, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. This is Morning Glory. Mike Graham is away. He is sunning himself at a lovely destination. He'll be back, I think, next Wednesday. So I'm afraid you're going to have to put up with me again on Monday and Tuesday. So your worst luck. Before we go to the organiser of tomorrow's great British national strike, here's a voice note. This is Gaz on our favourite guy, Keir Starmer.
Morning, Kev. I went to bed after your show and I woke up and you're on this morning. Happy days. With old two-tier free gear, I know they all live in the bubble, but I think he's got to know that he's out in 4 years, if he lasts 4 years. I don't think they will. I think once the blackouts come and we have to call in the IMF, they'll be out in 3 years. But anyway, I think he knows he's toast, so he's thinking, I will shape Britain in my image, and he don't care. It's more dangerous because he knows he's out. So he's just thinking, I will do what I want. I will shape Britain in my image. And then when he's booted out, just as the last thing Hitler said before he shot himself, he'll stand there and say, oh, the British people are not worthy of me. And they'll go and get a nice cushy job in the EU. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Gaz. I agree. Yeah, I think his days are numbered, but he'll probably. Who knows if he'll fight the next election for Labour? The vultures are circling over his decaying husk at number 10 Downing Street, Angela Rayner. I mean, man, oh man, she's got a dagger in her hand and she's waiting for that guy to turn round and stab him in the back. She is on manoeuvres, make no doubt about that. I mean, the point is, The point is, you know what politicians are like? All those senior Labour cabinet ministers, they're seeing a prime minister whose popularity is in the toilet. It is plummeting. And they see that as an opportunity, particularly old Ange. Can you imagine it? Angela Rayner as the prime minister. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It will be worse than Starmer. I mean, she's a sort of communist, basically. So she'd be worse than Starmer, but, you know, who knows what will happen. Thanks for that, Gaz. Very good WhatsApp voice note. Now, let's go straight over to my next guest. He's Richard Donaldson, and he is the organiser of tomorrow's Great British National Strike. Good morning, Richard.
Morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. Now, you're an ex-British Army soldier. You're a father and a husband. Tell us exactly what tomorrow's Great British National Strike is all about.
Yeah, so we obviously I've called it a strike. We can get on to why I've done that. I know it's caused a bit of confusion, but essentially we're going to be meeting in all 76 cities across the UK. Now, we're standing against illegal immigration, net zero, inheritance tax, and the attacks on our farmers. We're standing against the lack of the rape gang inquiry, two-tier justice, the attacks on our freedom of speech, and then more recently, the Brexit betrayal. So what I've said is, if you are a legal citizen of this country, whether you are black, white, rich, poor, whether you're on the left, on the right, regardless of your religion, whether you're Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, it doesn't matter, okay? If you oppose any or all of those issues that I've just raised, maybe you've got your own reasons for coming along, please join us in your local city centre. So we have got all the information on our socials. You can go on there, Facebook, X, TikTok, type in the Great British National Strike and join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. in your local city centre. And
what form will this protest take? You're talking about lots and lots of different cities where it will unfold. What's the plan? You meet in the middle of the city, you go on a march, or what?
So, yeah, so we've not been able to march. So essentially, and it's one of the reasons why I called it a strike. So logistically, it is next to impossible with the current system the way it is to meet in every city centre. Call it a protest. You've got to risk assess everything. You've got to have routes in and out. There's got to be marshals. We're working with the police. We're working with the council. But essentially, this is phase 1 of 3. Okay. So phase 1 is essentially come to your local city centre. Like I say, the meeting points are all online. You can find them all the information that you need. Meet people. Turn up for this phase 1. It is vital that you turn up, that you meet people. Treat it like, you know, back in the days when they used to have the Jubilee parties, the Queen's Jubilee parties. Bake cakes and scones, bring them along. Only spend cash tomorrow, okay, and support small local businesses. Yeah. Turn up, treat it like a bit of a party, please. No alcohol, nothing like that. We've said no face coverings. All the sort of the rules are all online. But turn up and put unity at the front of this, because that's what we're really trying to push here. We're not far right. We're not far anything. We're trying to push unity amongst everybody. If you're a legal citizen of this country, you are welcome. Turn up, say hello to people, add them as friends on Facebook, talk to people, understand that actually 99% of us at the moment, we're all of the same opinion and we're all absolutely sick to the back teeth of what's going on.
So it's basically, the idea is a sort of national cry of protest and on a special day. It's not really about withdrawing your Labour in terms of a traditional strike, right?
No. So again, I've had to call it a strike for many reasons, like I just touched on. So calling it a protest and trying to do it logistically in every city, it's next to impossible. Okay. So what I had to do.
Yeah, go on.
What I had to do was come up with a word that would still get the message across. Now, if you're a nobody like me and you start throwing the word protest around on social media, you get shut down very quickly. The algorithm works against you. You don't cut through it at all. So I had to use a word that would cut through the algorithm, that people could still understand generally what it's sort of about. But also, like I say, in terms of logistics, and also through taking legal advice, calling it a protest is you're getting yourself in hot bother. So I've had to sort of meander through the logistical framework of holding what is essentially a protest.
And last point, Richard, what's your sense of how many people are going to turn up? Are you getting a lot of interest?
Yeah, loads. I don't know. I think some locations, London, we've got guest speakers coming, celebrities who are going to be standing there, sort of influencers, all the rest of it. I won't say names because if they don't turn up, then, it's embarrassing for me. But, you know, the likes of London, Birmingham, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, they're going to get a lot more than, say, for example, Truro. But
yeah, that makes sense. Where is the protest in London?
So that's outside the gates of Downing Street.
All right, I might have a look myself. Richard, good luck tomorrow. With you all the way. Take care now, mate. That's Richard Donaldson, former soldier, also organiser of the Great British National Strike. That is a general protest around the country about this government. I think in spirit, probably all of us would like to be there, don't you think? Maybe try and get down to your local protest. The Great British National Strike tomorrow all over the country. When we come back after this break, we're going to be talking to the former head of National Counter-Terrorism Security, Chris Phillips, after Keir Starmer has been blamed, well, you heard earlier, for emboldening anti-Semitic attackers, and Benjamin Netanyahu, in particular the Israeli Prime Minister, in a rage about the anti-Israel rhetoric emanating from Starmer, from Macron, the leader of France, from Mark Carney. He's sick to death of it, and he says it's fueling the kind of anti-Semitic hatred that resulted in that awful killing of those poor Jewish couple, that poor young Jewish couple last night in Washington. So that next, stay tuned.
What we should be doing is finding the prison spaces that we need by deporting the foreign criminals who are in our prisons. We're hearing today that the government thinks they need 9,500 extra prison places, but there are 10,800 foreign criminals in our prisons. Get those people out of our prison, deport them from our country. The number of people on remand in our prison awaiting trial is going up. It was 17,000 in December, and instead of putting in the hard yards, Labour are reaching for the easy lever of releasing prisoners early.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, as we heard earlier in the show, if you were tuned in then, is being blamed, well, specifically by Benjamin Netanyahu, but other Jewish voices around the world are agreeing with him that the rhetoric coming out of Downing Street, also Paris with Macron, and over there in Canada, Mark Carney, all of them very, very sort of pro-Palestine, to be honest with you. Macron proposing a Palestinian state. You know, we heard David Lammy, our foreign secretary, in this emotional assault on Israel's appalling behaviour, according to him, in Gaza. Now, Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, basically says it is this kind of rhetoric, anti-Israel rhetoric, that is fueling the hate-filled anti-Semitism that resulted in that awful shooting of that poor young Jewish couple in Washington yesterday. Let's talk to the former head of National Counter-Terrorism, Chris Phillips. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Kevin.
Before we talk, let me just play you a clip of Benjamin Netanyahu last night in an absolute rage. So take it away, Mr. Netanyahu.
I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. Well, for 18 years, we had a de facto Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. And what did we get? Peace? No. We got the most savage slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Ministers Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history.
Well, Chris, he makes a good point in my view. It is not a good look to be thanked by Hamas, is it? So Keir Starmer, David Lammy, and indeed Macron and Carney have just been thanked by that abominable terrorist bunch of rapists and murderers. So do you agree with Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think that the rhetoric coming out of Downing Street, France and Canada is fueling the kind of anti-Semitist hatred that caused those killings in Washington yesterday?
Yeah, Kevin, he was fuming, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And you can understand from his perspective. I mean, the difficulty is, of course, there are other perspectives, and the leaders need to try and find some way to end this terrible set of atrocities that's going on in the Middle East. Whether that is with Gaza becoming a state, I think to be fair to the three countries that have been mentioned, they've all supported the Israeli state quite strongly over the last 2 or 3 years regarding this. But I think at some stage this has all got to come to an end. And the world is a tinderbox at the moment, and there are an enormous number of people out there who are enraged. And I think, the chances of terrorist acts across the world increasing over the next year or so, if this doesn't solve itself, is going to be huge.
Well, as someone who used to work in the field of counter-terrorism, if you were looking at the situation in Gaza, I was about to say, please excuse me, would you be tearing your hair out? But that's not really a relevant.
I've already done that, Kevin.
Would you metaphorically be tearing your hair out about the fact that Hamas will not release these last 50 hostages? You know, people object to the way Israel is going about combating that, but they do keep saying, you release those hostages and maybe we can talk. Until you do, we are still going to come at you. It is the intransigence of Hamas over these hostages that really is at the root of this ongoing conflict, isn't it?
Yes, of course it is, and everyone knows that Hamas and that's what they're trying to keep hold of, but that doesn't solve the
Chris, it's a terrible line. We're going to call you back. Let's get Chris back on the line, shall we? In the meantime, we'll take a quick call from it's Judith in Radlett. Hello, Judith.
Hi, Kevin. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You sound sort of echoey. You're not in the bathroom or something, are you?
No, I'm in the hallway getting Sadie ready for her.
Okay, good. Well, I can hear you fine. So what would you like to say?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I just come back from Israel. I came back Tuesday evening. And what happened in Washington yesterday, I was expecting it. I know that sounds awful and people won't understand that. But I realise that the hatred that's been allowed to
fester, I think that's a word, isn't it?
Fester, just even on the campuses, are a nightmare.
So Judith, can I ask? Are you Jewish?
I am Jewish. Yes. Yes, I am, and I'm heartbroken at what I've seen going on in this country, and we feel beleaguered and bewildered.
I know you do. I know you do, Judith, and I'll tell you why I know. I live in.
I know you do.
I live in Hampstead in North London, and that's where the biggest Jewish community in this country is. So I know all my neighbours, and my neighbours are heartbroken. They're devastated, and they're shocked. I know some of my neighbours, a couple of my neighbours, in their 60s, and they said we lived there. They're not, they're not primarily. Don't take this wrong. For me, they're not primarily Jewish. They're British. They're British citizens, and they feel like suddenly they're in a country where they're not wanted, where they're not liked, and they are bemused by it, and so am I. I'm furious about it.
And I just want to thank you, Kevin, and all your presenters. And I'm worried about all of you. Do you know that since I've come back from Israel, literally I can't sleep. I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm so hurt by what's been going on, and when I see what that awful anti-Semite, sorry, he can come and arrest me for saying that, Lammy said on the front bench, the hatred in their eyes, it's that hatred that we see on the marches. And this is what intifada means. It means kill us. It means kill every Jew. That's what they're calling for. Free Palestine, globalise the intifada. Hello, this is the result. I mean, and God help us here. We are sitting targets here.
Yeah. I must say, Judith, that, of course, David Lammy would deny that he's an anti-Semite, but I did find that the enthusiasm with which he went about that condemnation of Israel in the House of Commons a couple of days ago, disconcerting, uncomfortable to say the least. These Labour politicians are never happier than when they're condemning Israel. When they have to support Israel, as they did after October the 7th, they're much less happy, and that is worrying. And I do worry that generally this rising tide of anti-Semitic sentiments did result in what we saw in Washington last night, which was a tragedy beyond belief. A tragedy beyond belief. It's got to stop. Judith, thank you very much for a call. I've got to move on, but all the best to you. Keep in touch. Ring me again. Judith in Radlett there, expressing what I think a lot of Jewish people feel, that something's going wrong. There is a rising tide of blind anti-Semitism, people being hated just because they're Jews. That's got to be wrong, folks. That's got to be wrong. I think we're ready now to go back to the former head of National Counter-Terrorism, Chris Phillips. Hi, Chris, again.
Hi, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's not your fault. But you were just saying, we were talking about Hamas's intransigence, its refusal to release these hostages. If they did, we'd be talking a different ball game, wouldn't we?
I think we would be talking a different ball game, but we'd also be talking with them with less power at their elbow, if you like. And, the sadness of this is it's just human tragedy on human tragedy. And the simple linking of Israel to every Jewish person that happens to be walking the earth is just completely ridiculous. And most sensible people know that. Unfortunately, David Lammy isn't the brightest ticket in the box.
You got that right. Yeah, exactly. Macron has just sort of come out and said, oh, let's have a Palestinian state. Carney's on the same wagon. Where our lot stand, our Labour government. Socialists, traditionally are not keen on Israel. So the rhetoric coming out of these three Western countries and other Western countries is anti-Israel, and you can understand after Netanyahu, like the rest of us, learns to his horror about what happened in Washington yesterday, that he's exploded in a kind of rage, saying, stop having a go at us. We're supposed to be your allies, and the more you talk like this, the more you will fuel the kind of blind anti-Semitism that caused those murders yesterday in Washington.
Yeah, I think we've got to get to an end, as I said previously, that there's no way at the moment that we can see an end to this situation. The There has been all sorts of offers for peace and for Palestinian states to exist over history, and that's never been taken up by Hamas historically. So none of this is straightforward. I just feel sorry for Jewish people across the world who have got nothing to do with what's going on in Israel, who feel threatened, like the lady that was on a few minutes ago. You know, you just feel for these people, and us as a country, we need to stand up and make sure they're protected and looked after properly. Because there, you know, as I said, the world is a tinderbox, and there's an awful lot of people who are moving towards extremism, and we need to deal with it. And policing and security services have got their hands full trying to prevent these things from happening.
As a security terrorism expert, you know, what we saw last night, very hard to police these lone wolf individuals. But do you predict that unless some kind of solution is found to the Gaza conflict, unless somehow it ends soon, that terrorism will become more of a threat globally?
Well, let me tell you, Kevin, I've heard this expression being said for the last 20, 30 years, probably, you know, and if you go back many years before that, this is a real cyst on society, on life, and that area needs to be solved. And how they do that, God knows. It's just... In fact, God's got a lot of problems relating to this, because half of this is religious groups that don't want to and can never see themselves living alongside each other.
Indeed. And what I mean, how would you rate the threat of terrorism right now in Britain with all this going on?
Well, I mean, the terrorism threat levels haven't changed in the UK. Having said that, we have, of course, had the Iranians that have been arrested recently, and I think the trouble is, whatever threat level we've got in the UK, it always says it could happen at any time. And people need to be aware of that and be taking all the precautions. And more importantly, if people are looking as though they're going off the rails and maybe looking like they may be going to conduct something mad or going to extreme views, then that needs to be reported to the police as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. And you talked about that Iranian terror plot. Of the, I think, 8 or 9 Iranian nationals who were arrested in this country, it has subsequently transpired 4 of them came here as illegal migrants. They're asylum seekers. So as a terrorist expert, you would advocate, I assume, tightening the way we handle all these people who come into this country. These migrants who come across the channel, we don't know anything about them. We ought to start finding out, don't you think?
You don't need to be a terrorism expert to think that, do you? The whole country thinks that, and it only seems to be governments that find it difficult to understand this problem, because I think, and I noted the guy that was talking earlier about the strike. The simple fact is the country is fed up with migrants.
Damn straight, Chris. Really good to talk to you, mate. Got to go now. Thank you very much, Chris Phillips, their terrorism expert. When we come back, Matt Vickers, MP, Shadow Home Office Minister. Stay tuned for that.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going round that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I'll shove a 5 in a pot and you can go and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park, narrated by Angela Rayner. says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed whack the rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it a channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Yeah.
Where everywhere is pitch dark.
Yes.
And as you go through these day-glow coloured pictures.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm in for Mike Graham on Morning Glory. He's away sunning himself, and I am now in new territory, boldly going where I have never been before. Never done a 4-hour show before. But the good news is, you know, of course, usually most shows are 3 hours apart from the breakfast. So I'm doing a 4-hour show today, and the great news is I'm not getting any more money for it. So great. Anyway, in a little while, we're going to be... Do you see that disgraceful scene the other day? Disgraceful snapshot of where this country is going wrong. 66 small ships, little ships they're called, setting out from Ramsgate in Kent to go to Dunkirk to commemorate that fantastic evacuation of the British troops on Dunkirk beach in World War II, one of the most amazing military operations of all time, saving all those soldiers from a fate not worse than death, a fate that was death. They were saved by volunteers who took their boats over. So to commemorate that fantastic event 80 years ago, the other day a load of small ships were going to set off, and guess what? They got told to disperse, get out of the way, because the border force were bringing in a migrant dinghy. Get out of the way. Never mind commemorating our glorious military past. Never mind commemorating Dunkirk. We've got a dinghy, a small boat full of migrants. Get out of the way. That's a snapshot of Britain today. It's pathetic. Anyway, later on in this hour, we're going to be talking to one of the vessels making that journey, one of the people commemorating Dunkirk, see what he finds out, thought about all that. Ben Habib will join me in a little while as well. We're going to talk about Chagos. So lots still to come. Stick around, get on the phone, give me a call, 03444991000, or send me a WhatsApp voice note. We've got 60 sizzling minutes still to go, and then I hand over to the one and only brilliant Alex Phillips. But before we get to all of that, my first guest for this hour, very pleased to welcome him. He is the Shadow Home Office Minister, Matt Vickers. Hello, Matt.
Hello, good morning.
Now, let's talk about your friend and mine, Keir Starmer. I mean, even by his own low standards, this has been a calamitous week. He has been selling us down the river like there's no tomorrow. You know, Monday, he trades away Brexit, he betrays Brexit, made some kind of deal, the net result of which seems to me to be this. We're backing the EU in all but name. We're now rule takers, not rule makers. We have got no vote, but we have to take their rules. And for the privilege of being bossed around by Brussels again, we're going to be giving them billions of pounds. Then, of course, there's the Chagos Islands. We're going to be talking about that. That deal beggars belief, but you're an expert. Perhaps you can explain the reasoning for it, because I'm damned if I can, and I'm damned if I've found anyone else who can really explain why we have handed those strategic islands to Mauritius. And also he did a deal with the World Health Organization as well, which may well give that outfit power to force us to have lockdowns in another health epidemic. So quite a week. By his own standards, betraying Britain on an epic level. What is this guy up to, do you think, Matt?
Well, he seems to be on everybody's side, but Britain's actually. I think when he got to the negotiating table, he sat at the wrong end and just assumed some other nation's interests. Because when you look at that deal with the EU, it is a disaster. We've gone to a situation where we're going to be taking law from the EU. We're going to be complying with all this law that they're going to dish out. We're empowering. He's giving control back to the European Court of Justice on lots of areas, and then beyond that, he's going to send a huge amount of taxpayers' money to the EU at the same time as handing over control of British fishing waters for the next 12 years. It's balmy. I don't know whose interest it's in, but it's certainly not in Britain. And then when you look at the Chagos deal, I mean, crikey, we're going to hand the British Indian Ocean territories over. They should be British. It's a clue's in the name. We're going to hand it over based on some hypotheticals. He's not challenging any judgments on this. He's not going to fight this thing and try and take it forward. But not only is he handed it over, we're going to pay £101 million every year for the next 99 years for the privilege. I mean, you couldn't get a worse deal.
It is unbelievable, isn't it? And I noted after he did that ridiculous Brexit betrayal. I mean, there's two things to say about this. Don't forget this guy, Keir Starmer, the world's worst negotiator. Before he went into those negotiations, the night before, he held a press conference saying, I'm going to sign the deal. I'm going to sign the deal. Well, so he sat down at the table, having already said he was going to sign the deal, which is like going to a second-hand car dealer and saying, before you try and sell me all these old jalopies, let me just tell you, I'm definitely going to buy one of them. It's not a great way to start negotiations. And by the way, Matt, apparently, in those alleged negotiations in central London the other day, he sat on the same side of the table as the EU guys. You're supposed to sit across the table. But then, this is my point I wanted to make, that he then announced triumphantly, Britain is back on the world stage, as if we can't possibly be on the world stage unless we hitch our wagon to the Brussels boot boys. That, I thought, was an act of treachery to say that.
It is dangerous. The problem is, across the globe now, countries must just be looking at us and thinking they need to come over and cash in soon because this idiot is giving away anything we've got at any cost. I mean, the Indian trade deal, he calls it a trade deal. Actually, we're allowing Indian workers to come into this country and not pay national insurance for 3 years at the same time as anybody in this country who is creating jobs, employing people, is being battered by Labour's jobs tax. It's having a huge impact on it. Well, we're seeing more people unemployed. It's a disaster, absolutely disastrous. This guy, I don't know whose side he's on, but he's certainly not on Britain's.
He's just pursuing, I mean, he's a sort of obsessive globalist. And he's pursuing his globalist agenda against the wishes of the people. He thinks, I think, deep down he's doing the right thing, and that in the fullness of time we'll all realise just how correct he was. Well, we won't, because he's not correct. He's totally wrong here. But now, Matt, I'm afraid we come to the tricky business of trying to explain the Chagos deal. Right, so but we hand the Chagos Islands, very strategic islands that we basically control, to Mauritius. Mauritius is 1,300 miles away, about the distance from London to Marrakesh or something. They've never had sovereign control of these islands, ever, but we've given them to Mauritius. And then we've said, as well as giving you these islands that you have no right to control, would it be okay if we gave you 9 billion quid as well? Could you begin even to explain what the hell this deal is all about, Matt?
Well, it's so rational and so bonkers. It's actually a bit of a challenge. But this is it. We should stop calling them. We should call them the British Indian Ocean Territory, because they are British. That should be the starting point. But actually, we're giving it over to Mauritius, who Russia have proudly announced that they're advancing cooperation with. We've seen China talking about deeper strategic relationships with them, and we're handing over an area that we have a base in, where we're going to inform them every time we might be considering doing anything from such a base. This is just we're literally poking ourselves in the eye with this and handing over a load of cash in the process. It is very difficult to explain any rationale for such a move. They've bought into some lefty lawyers and their interpretation of what goes on. He's been smoking the same stuff as Jeremy Corbyn and seems to be bought entirely into this idea.
Yeah, I think the only plausible explanation for this baffling Chagos deal, he didn't have to do this. This is unnecessary self-harming. This is something you could just go, oh, Mauritius want the Chagos Islands. Do they? Thanks very much. Bye. They're not getting it. But instead, they've given them away. And the only explanation can be this, to my mind. Starmer is a sort of trendy, Guardian reading, North London liberal. They all sit around their dinner parties discussing how left-wing they are. His big mate Richard Hermer, who one of his first acts was to ennoble him, making him a lord so he could make him Attorney General. I think it's Starmer, Hermer. They've got this kind of guilt trip about British colonialism, and they think somehow or other they are at last ridding us of the spectre of British imperialism because it's the right thing to do. He actually said that once, the right thing to do. Well, that's not a good enough reason for betraying British interests. This is a very strategic set of islands, and he's endangered not only Britain by giving away these islands, he's endangered the world.
He's not ridding us of anything. He's just gaining us a huge financial commitment. It's ridiculous. Can I just say that is one of the best Keir Starmer impressions I've heard.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
A very long time. I'm very impressed. But actually, it's indicative of what's going on in this country at the moment. You see these costs, these huge sums of money that he splashes around in these international agreements. They come from somewhere. They come from the back of hardworking British people. Companies that are now paying more tax to employ somebody. We're seeing what he's doing to pensioners, ripping 300 quid from their hand. We're seeing what he's doing to our farmers. We're seeing what he's doing to our fishermen now. But these decisions and these huge numbers, they're numbers when you read them out, but actually they have real consequences for people across this country who are now paying the highest tax burden since the Second World War. This guy is a record breaker. We pay more in tax than we paid since the Second World War. There are more illegal migrants arriving on our shores than ever before. Businesses are closing at the fastest rate since the world economic crash. He's a record breaker. He's setting precedents and records. Disastrous for the country as it is. All of these decisions come with huge costs.
Let's talk about the migrant crisis. We'll park the legal figures. They're heading in the right direction, thanks to you lot, actually. They
should be heading more quickly in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with that. But let's leave that, because I've discussed the hell out of that this morning. But it's worth talking about the illegal migrant crisis, because 2 days ago, 820 migrants came across the channel illegally. It bears repeating. We're always saying it, but there is no deterrent. There are no deterrents. He scrapped the Rwanda scheme just when it looked at when it might start working. People go, well, the Rwanda scheme was a disaster. It just didn't work. No, it just didn't start. He didn't let it start, which is outrageous. He just ditched £700 million worth of taxpayers' investment in that scheme. Ever since then, no deterrent. This situation is spiralling out of control, and he's basically sticking his fingers in his ear going la 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 as if it's not happening. We need to get a grip, don't we?
We needed today. If people think they can come to this country and will never be removed, they'll just keep coming in ever-increasing numbers. It's utterly balmy. But not only did he scrap the Rwanda deal, he's removing now all the legislation and the powers that were put in place to allow us to offshore these people. It is insane. The reality is that since this government came to power, the number of people arriving illegally has gone up by 30%. It is at record 30%, a third more virtually. But then they're in more, the number in hotels before the election was coming down, it's now up, it's 28%. But that has real consequences. Not only is it a huge cost, we all talk about the cost, but beyond the financial cost to taxpayers, it has huge costs for communities. I went to Altrincham, where they've got one of these hotels, hundreds of single men put in the centre of town. Whatever the security concerns are about that, the the hotel space used to be used by people who were travelling into town, who then supported what was a very vibrant hospitality sector, restaurants, pubs, businesses. That's all gone as well. There's huge costs on the NHS, huge costs on housing, all being picked up by the British taxpayer. And at the moment, we're just driving in the wrong direction. I don't really know where this guy's, but we should have known. We should have known, because this was a man who campaigned, before he became Prime Minister, he campaigned against the deportation of foreign criminals. He voted against every measure that was brought forwards to toughen up our immigration system. And he's also the guy who said that immigration controls were fundamentally racist. Like, it's just insane, absolutely insane.
Right, here you go. Immigration controls are fundamentally racist. And on that imitating bombshell, let's call this time on this excellent interview. Thank you very much, Matt. Great to talk to you. That's Matt Vickers, Shadow Home Office Minister. Before we go to break, after the break, we're going to be talking to Ben Habib again about the Chagos disaster, the surrender. He is surrender Starmer, as he surrenders everything that's British, surrenders our Brexit deal, surrenders the Chagos Islands, surrender summit, surrender Starmer. Blimey. You know, he should have white flags surgically attached to him or something. But before we go there, it is Mike Graham's excellent programme tonight. I think it's at 7 p.m. Plank of the Week. Have a look.
This is Rachel Reeves, or Richard III, as we like to call her. What's she up to?
Rachel Reeves, who's been speaking about the inflation data.
But the numbers today are clearly disappointing. We want to see inflation coming down after the cost of living challenges that people have been through this last few years.
I think we've got a problem there with the sound again.
No, it's perfect.
What was she doing? Taking the inflation out of a balloon filled with helium?
That's her normal voice.
I tell you what, I much prefer that Rachel Reeves voice to her actual voice. Her actual voice is horrible. It's like swallowing gravel. At least she's swallowed gravel. So, you know, keep that one up. The Pinky and Perky sound is really good for you, Rachel. So that's 7 o'clock. And by the way, I should mention that my show, What Just Happened, is on at 9 o'clock. And I haven't got a clip for you. So you'll have to wait and just watch it. But I'll tell you, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I would say that, wouldn't I? Let's go to break. When we come back, Ben Habib.
One of our most important bases is its location allows that power projection from America and Britain. It participated very much so in the Afghan campaigns in Iraq and so forth. Absolutely important. But ultimately, Donald Trump, who focuses on the art of the deal, his team, in fact, I was in America last week discussing this with the State Department. They've looked at the legal details. I hear what you say, but you're then going into a new place where you're actually going against international law.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight over to my first guest and my friend Ben Habib. Hello, Ben.
Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. Now, can we first... I want to ask you about this bemusing Chagos deal in a minute, but I also want to get your take on the fate of Lucy Connelly, that loving mum, that middle-class mum, wife of a Tory councillor who, for some unknown reason, is doing 31 months behind bars for posting a few hurty words on Twitter. That should never happen in a Western democracy, if you ask me. When Keir Starmer says, I am a defender of free speech, you can't be that, Keir, as long as you allow people to go to prison for what they write on social media. That makes you the enemy of free speech. Now, last night, Ben, I had as a guest, I was very proud to have as a guest on my show, Raymond Connelly, that's Lucy's heartbroken, devastated husband, of course, who learned of his wife's fate on Monday when the appeal court rejected her bid to have her grotesquely disproportionate sentence reduced. Here he is.
We're not too bad. We're a good little team, but obviously this is probably knocked my daughter a little bit. So what I've done, because she's got bad anxiety anyway, and she kept saying, oh, when's mummy's letter coming? When's mummy's letter coming? And I said, look, we're just waiting now. And obviously she said, how did it all go? And I said, pretty good. I'm confident, I reckon, I think we're going to go and I think we have a good chance. But I was mindful. I said, but, if not, we're going to see her Sunday. We're going to go to a family day. Then it's only a couple of months away and she'll be here and whatever. But she'll be thinking she'll be missing my 13th birthday with the date I gave her. But what I've done is I've sent her to live with Lucy's mum because she's been really having a real tough time. So I've sent her to go and live with Lucy's mum with Lucy and Lucy's sisters there just to give her a little bit more support because she has really been struggling.
What are your thoughts, Ben, on Lucy Connelly's fate? Nobody is condoning what she tweeted. She tweeted about mass deportations, burning migrants. She was in a fury because she's a young mother who lost her own baby son in tragic circumstances about a year ago. It was actually due to an NHS mistake. But she was empathising with those poor 3 mothers who lost their daughters in that Southport horror, the slaughter of the innocents then. And she lost her temper and she tweeted something, shall we say, ill-advised. But 31 months, it's grotesque, isn't it? And why could the appeal court not find it in its heart to show that woman some mercy the other day?
I think that whole period after Southport is basically a shame on the British criminal justice system and the Prime Minister and Yvette Cooper, all of whom basically directed the police to arrest people who've been protesting, including people like Lucy Connelly, who'd simply said things as opposed to done anything. And I think in the couple of weeks after Keir Starmer categorised everyone who was protesting as far right, 1,000 people were arrested in a couple of weeks. Think about it. And 400 of those were arrested simply on what they said, not what they did. Lucy Connelly obviously being one of them. And actually, even though what she tweeted was vile, in no circumstances can I claim or justify that it was an incitement to violence, because she very clearly says in her tweet that actually they can burn these hotels for all I care. Now, that is not an incitement to violence. That is basically a declaration that she has no care for these people living in her communities who she perceived to be a threat to the communities. And she should never have been arrested. She should never have been charged. She should never have been convicted. And having been convicted, they should have quashed her conviction the other day. The whole thing is awful. People who want to justify her incarceration say, well, she pleaded guilty. A lot of those people who were charged pleaded guilty because I think they were either they had bad advice or they were told that they would get off lightly if they weren't to trouble the criminal justice system. And, you know, we mustn't forget, Kevin, that amongst all those people who were convicted, in my view, wrongly, was a chap called Peter Lynch, who similarly said things and put stuff on a placard.
He just held a placard up, didn't he?
He just held a placard. I think he was a bit rude to a couple of policemen. And they put him in prison like they did to Lucy Connelly. By the way, they charged him with violence, even though he'd only ever said things. You know, when you look at the charge sheet, there's actually nothing on it that is violent, even though the charge itself is one of violence. And he pleaded guilty, went to prison, and then hanged himself in prison 2 months later. So a 61-year-old man who'd been entirely law-abiding all his life ended up dead because I think effectively because of the Prime Minister, I'm afraid, because he directed the criminal justice system to behave in the way that it did.
Absolutely. And Lucy Connelly, before her fall from grace, if you like, with this ill-advised tweet, didn't have so much as a parking ticket to her name. She's led a blameless life. Her husband said it's nonsense to say she's a racist. She tweeted something that she regretted. She took it down, you know, in the heat of the moment. She was a mother who lost a child, sympathising, empathising with other mothers who'd lost their children. And they're looking at us across the Atlantic in America. They're going, my God, have you seen what's going on in Britain? They're locking people up for tweets. Keir Starmer going, I defend the freedom of speech. He's the bloody enemy of freedom of speech, isn't he?
He absolutely is. And I mean, what we have is an extreme form of ideology where effectively British citizenry aren't allowed to speak up. You know, if you're part of the majority, the silent majority who, you know, want this country to be run on the principles of putting the country first and its people first, if you're part of that lot, Keir Starmer holds you in contempt. And the only way to shut you up is effectively to stop free speech. So if anyone those of us who believe in this country want to say things about this country that are patriotic or put this country first, the easiest way to do it is prevent us from saying it in the first place. And that's what he did to Lucy Connelly. The other thing I just want to mention on Lucy Connelly is that she was denied visitation rights with her daughter. I mean, on what basis were they, you know, on what basis, what justification could they make that decision? Absolutely wretched.
Yeah, check this out, Ben. You've probably seen this, but it's worth watching again. After Lucy's appeal disgracefully failed, the judge, a guy called Lord Justice Holroyd, said there was no possible argument to suggest that this 31-month sentence for hurty words on Twitter was manifestly excessive. There's so many arguments that it was manifestly excessive. Here's Keir Starmer's reaction the other day.
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
Don't know the details of this case that's been splashed all over the front page of the newspapers, has been leading television news bulletins, all over the radio. He's just lying. He's a liar.
He's a liar. And, you know, it didn't stop. He didn't know the details of the thousands of people who protested, but it didn't stop him from acting like a judge, jury and, you know, and convictor when he categorized them all as far right and made all those statements about them. The man is a liar. The man is a liar. And I know we want to talk about Chagos in a minute. He's absolutely lied about the Chagos deal.
Yeah,
he's a liar.
Let's quickly, we accept he's a liar. Let's quickly talk about, I've got to move on in a second because we've dwelt quite rightly, in my view, on poor Lucy Connelly. Yeah, the Chagos deal. It's going to cost us £9 billion to hand over sovereignty of those islands to Mauritius, 1,300 miles away, China's best friend. Why the hell are we doing this, Ben?
Yeah, so we're handing over a British asset over which Mauritius has no legitimate complaint. There is an international Court of Justice ruling that it ought to go back to Mauritius, but the ICJ is a politicized court acting for the UN, and it's only advisory. There's no binding ruling that the UK should hand over its asset to Mauritius, which never had sovereignty over the Chagos. And as you rightly point out, Mauritius presents a geopolitical threat to the United Kingdom. And one of the assets that we have there is a military base, which is also used by the Americans. And to hand over an asset for nothing to a power that has no right to it, a power that could be working against us, and then on top of that, to take on the liability of that island, of those islands, for the next 100 years, paying 10 million. Sorry, it's 100 million a year. Sorry, forgive me, 100 million a year. You know, absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
It just beggars belief. It really, really does. As I keep saying, even by his own low standards, Keir Starmer has had a terrible week. Ben, great to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. That's Ben Habib, former Reform deputy, of course, now leader of the Great British PAC Party. Now, let's go to break now. When we come back, we're going to be talking to one of the people skippering one of the little ships that set sail from Ramsgate the other day, Ramsgate in Kent, to commemorate that great day, the evacuation of Dunkirk Beach 80 years ago in World War II. They were told, get out of the way, disperse, never mind this commemoration, to get out of the way. We're the border force. We've got a boat full of illegal migrants. Get out of the way. What a disgrace. We'll talk about that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk about the big story of the day. Doctor Who's been exterminated. They've got rid of the star of the BBC's ailing sci-fi classic series that has descended into a sea of time-travelling wokery. It is crazy, and they have axed the star of the show. So I believe now we're ready to go over to our next guest. And as I was saying before the break, basically a set of 66 little ships, we call them, and that's what they were called back in the war, set out to go to Dunkirk to commemorate that great evacuation, you know, as seen in the movies back there in World War II. Disgracefully, outrageously, these people, these excellent people commemorating one of our greatest hours, were told to disperse by the border force because they were escorting in a boat full of illegal migrants. Absolutely outrageous. Well, let's now go straight over to, he's the skipper of a boat called Gorfalcon, one of the vessels making that journey. Gary Fletcher. Gary, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
You're on your boat there, lovely day down there in Ramsgate. Now, what was your feeling when that happened? I mean, for us around the country, we're absolutely outraged by that. It is a tableau, in my view, a snapshot of everything that is going wrong about this country. You great people commemorating one of our finest hours, that fabulous evacuation by little ships of British forces on Dunkirk beach, being told to disperse because the border force have got to bring in a small boat full of migrants. What did you feel, Gary?
I think first and foremost, I think it takes an awful lot of effort to transit 66 ships across the channel. It's particularly rough as we were coming into Dunkirk. I don't think we were asked to disperse. I think we were politely asked by the border force or even a naval warship to keep clear of 1 nautical mile, so that obviously from a safety perspective, 66 ships didn't cause any more issues to those individuals who are crossing the channel. I've been told by the Coast Guard in the past that crossing the channel is pretty much like walking across the M25 at rush hour. So if you can imagine, it's a huge shipping lane. It's quite a dangerous crossing of water. So I think it was rather sensible to steer away from those people who were perhaps suffering some difficulty in what would have been quite an arduous crossing for them, I think, on that day.
Yeah, but as a patriot, I mean, I get your point. I mean, safety at sea and all that. But, you know, we around the country heard of this story. And I think it's, as I said earlier, I just think it sums up exactly where this country is going wrong. Prioritising, having to, I accept that, but the prioritisation of a bunch of illegal migrants who crossed the channel unlawfully, the prioritisation of them over you and your colleagues, your compatriots, who were trying to commemorate one of the greatest days in British military history. It's just a tableau that sums up for me what's going wrong in this country. How did you know, I take the point about safety at sea, but as a patriot, how do you feel about that?
I think I'm here to commemorate rescuing 380,000 troops from Dunkirk, and I think that there's no higher level of patriotism that you can probably extend towards the people that have participated on this trip. I think that those people that have made that crossing have done so in probably the most arduous conditions that you can possibly imagine. And my thoughts as a patriot is that if women and children are on those trips, that's the most terrible of circumstances for them. So they have good reason. I think that we need to be compassionate to the decisions that they've made in order to make that crossing.
You mean it's one of those rare small boats that had a couple of women and children on it? Because usually it's just a bunch of blokes who are between the age of 18 and 35 looking for work when they get here, economic migrants. But, you know, maybe that boat did have some women and children. I mean, you're right, we have to worry about them. Let's talk a little bit about what you were commemorating. I mean, it was remarkable, wasn't it? A very unusual operation. Our boys over there in France up against it, being outweighed by huge numbers of German forces, had to retreat to the beach, and they were facing extermination. How did we get them? How could we get them off of those beaches? No military vessels available, so the call went out to your predecessors, small boat owners around the country. Can you take your little fishing boats, anything, rowing boats, whatever? Can you get over there and pick up our boys? And they damn well did it. Absolutely extraordinary.
I think you sum it up pretty well there. I think we had 800 ships that came over to rescue 380 Allied forces. I think if we think for a second that 700 of those were private vessels, it's a remarkable feat to organise that. And just being here in Dunkirk, it's quite sombering when you look around and you can see in the church tower that there's still bullet holes and coming round on the coast and looking at those beaches. is quite a has quite a sombering effect on you. I think it's incredibly important that we keep the tradition of coming back here, because it serves as a memory of what we achieved. And I think it was one of the most remarkable achievements. And that's why it's well known as the miracle Dunkirk. It was a tremendous effort to recover a lot of our soldiers. We only ever thought we were going to recover 45,000, and 380 is remarkable, and I think you contextualize that for a minute when you think about it, and the danger that people were in when they undertook those activities. It was under fire. It was
absolutely. You got you know, kind of civilians who just willingly went into the war with little fishing boats. You know, suddenly they're under fire, as you say. 380,000 cornered British troops, people who would have been exterminated by the Germans, rescued in this remarkable operation. It was the very best of British, I think, brilliantly captured in that recent film, Dunkirk. Did you see that, Gary?
I'm quite a fan. Yeah, I've forced everybody I know into watching that.
It is a great film, though, isn't it? No, there's no real narrative. It's just you just watch what happens. Happened to star Harry Styles, among others, didn't it?
Indeed, it's got quite a number of very well-known celebrities, and it's a very enjoyable watch. I think it's quite sombering, and I think an enjoyable movie that tells a remarkable story.
Absolutely, and respect to you and your friends who are commemorating that great moment in British history. Good to talk to you, Gary. Thank you very much. All the best. That was Gary Fletcher. He's the skipper of Falcon, one of the vessels making that journey to commemorate the remarkable Dunkirk evacuation. Before we go to break, well, I've got to take this call because she is a lady who, as I always say, she's on talk more than nearly all of the presenters. In fact, all of the presenters. It is Georgina from London. Hi, Georgina. How are you doing?
Good morning, my darling. I thought I'd fallen into some kind of time vortex when I woke up and you was on the television this morning.
I know.
I just wanted to say, you know, Britain is a little island, and we're sinking under the weight of migration, Kevin, both financially and culturally. We've been promised time and time again by the former Conservative government and this present government that this problem would be addressed, and it's not. Regardless of what they're telling us, it's getting worse. All we hear is a volley of word salad in regards to this matter, but as far as I can see, no physical action is being taken. We're yet again being smoke-screened by this government, and we're sick to the back teeth of it. We hear more and more about it daily. If these people land on our shores, darling, they're breaking our law in the first instance. They should be detained, and upon further scrutiny, if they have no identification, they should be deported back to France immediately. They should be given nothing. This is now classed as a national emergency, or it should be, and given priority. It's a threat to our national security, as we have no idea who these people are or what their past is. It's affecting our economy, our culture. It's permeating every aspect of our lives, and it must stop. And those who think to the contrary do not have the well-being of this country and its people at their heart.
You're right. It's a catastrophe, Georgina. It really is. And recently, the government, in one of its pretend get tough measures, said that migrants who come here illegally, traditionally, until now, if they commit offences, if they break our laws and get sent to, as long as they don't get sent to prison for more than a year, they're not even deported. So Labour the other day announced stringently, right, from now on, actually, any migrant, asylum seeker who breaks our laws, even if they don't go to prison for more than a year, will be subject to deportation. Well, they probably won't be, but that's what they said. So they're not allowed to break our laws anymore, but except for breaking the law of entering our country illegally, unlawfully. They're allowed to break that law. So once they allow them to break that law, the rest is nonsense, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, we have to make rules with both illegal immigration and legal migration. We've got to, you know, people come here. We have to let them stay the time they are given, and then they have got to go back. overstayers, need to be sent home. We need to be consistent. If they claim asylum just before they go home, then they got to be sent back, because asylum is not an afterthought, Kevin. If you want to claim asylum, you do that when you arrive at our borders. You don't stay your time and then think, oh, well, I'm going to claim asylum and stay. They've got to be...
Well, we could bring this system in, Georgina, like they have in Australia. Australia's system is this. You came here illegally on an unlawful vessel. You tried to break into our country. Therefore, your application for asylum is immediately negated. You came here unlawfully. You cannot apply for asylum. How about we had that system? Might help, mightn't it?
Yeah, it might help. I mean, you've got to look at it this way. This is affecting our housing, schools, NHS, and our prisons. It's just getting to a point now where people are getting to the end of their
tether. Yeah. This is a spiralling crisis that is spiralling out of control. Georgina, great to talk to you as always. That's the legendary Georgina. She phones pretty much every show, but she's always worth taking the call because, boy, does she state her case articulately. So good to talk to Georgina as always. Listen, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, a couple of things. I'm going to trail, if you like, the big match. That's on Sunday. Fulham versus Man City. That's going to be on talkSPORT. So we're going to talk about that. I will predict the result. Oh, I'll do it right now. Fulham 6. Manchester City 1. That'll be the result, definitely. Although I'm not betraying any favouritism there at all. I'll be there. We'll talk about that a little bit when we come back. But also, possibly more to the point, we're going to talk about the front page of The Sun today, which is Doctor Who Exterminated. The actor who plays the Time Lord has been axed, has been sacked. They say because the final straw. He's been lost in woke space. The storylines have descended into woke insanity, boring the hell out of stunned viewers. And also this guy enraged BBC bosses on last Saturday, because at the last moment, when he learned that Israel had qualified for the finals, he refused to introduce the BBC juries, the BBC judges. He just dropped out of the whole occasion, apparently angered that Israel was involved. So the BBC have had enough of him, so he's gone. We'll talk about that next and a little bit of football, so stay tuned.
The numbers are still rising at an enormous rate at a time when this country has catastrophically failed to build infrastructure to cope with it, and is seeing its culture really being collapsed before our very eyes. And so, look, whether it's 400 or 500,000 net this year as opposed to double that was last year, if you look in the early 1980s, when this country actually did have one of the most successful immigration policies, I'd argue, in Europe, if not the world, net migration was around 40 to 70,000 per year.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Only about 10 minutes to go of this morning's Morning Glory. Mike's away. As I told you, he's sunning himself in somewhere very, very glamorous. I will be standing in for him next week as well on Monday and Tuesday. But in a few minutes, my old partner in crime, my TV wife, Alex Phillips, will be in to tell you what she's got lined up for your delectation from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. You won't want to miss that. But before Alex comes in, we need to talk about a very, very important story. There it is. If you're watching, it's Doctor Who exterminated. There's the actor on the front. He is, of course, the Nkuti Gatwa. He's been sacked. He's been sacked after two incredibly boring flop woke series, there he is with a shocked expression on his wife, with his female co-star. They're looking shocked and dismayed. They've just seen the script, but he's been sacked because basically his tenure has been a disaster, too woke, ridiculous, and also he enraged BBC bosses on Saturday because he was supposed to be part of the Beebs Eurovision operation, and he was supposed to be sort of introducing the British juries, the British judges there, but he pulled out apparently in fury because Israel was involved. You get the picture, you know, pro-Palestine, all that. Also, apparently, he was also enraged. I think I'm right in saying that he's gay, but he was enraged because apparently the Eurovision Song Contest banned LGBTQ flags. Basically, the BBC bosses says that's it. He's useless anyway. He's been part of a disastrous couple of series. He can go. He got his marching orders. Pretty big story. Let's talk to entertainment reporter. She's waiting on the line. Beverly Lyons. Beverly Lyons, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm very, very well. Very, very well. Now, this is quite a turn of events, isn't it? Now, Nkuti Gatwa, you know, he's been a disaster. Not necessarily his fault. He didn't write the scripts. But the series, the last two series have apparently been descended into woke madness. Viewers just fed up. Ratings plummeting. So bad has it been that now that he's going, BBC bosses are likely to arrest Doctor Who to decide its very future, to ponder its future. But also there's this Eurovision Song Contest bust up. But quite a turn of events for Doctor Who. It's in chaos, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, look, Doctor Who has always been known for regeneration, and I suppose this is, as far as storylines go, this is a big one. We've seen, obviously, when Ncuti was brought in, you know, he was the first black man to play a doctor, also coming after Jodie Whittaker, who was the first woman to play the Doctor. Yeah. So, you know, in terms of TV, very interesting, and obviously reflecting on society in many ways, which is a good thing, right? But obviously there's people don't always agree with some of the storylines that have been happening, and I know that since Jodie and David Tennant came on board, we went from about viewing figures of about 10 million to about 1.5 million.
Yeah, and falling.
If you count the streams, they argue it's a bit more than that, but about 5 million. But as you see, it's descending. They did a deal with Disney Plus. Many think that that's one of the reasons why it became a bit more woke. Obviously, Russell T Davies has said, look, it's not necessarily woke. I just see it as a bit of an open door thing. We're just reflecting on things. But you have storylines that some people feel have just been
Beverly,
a bit too much.
It doesn't actually reflect the vast majority of British society, does it? It reflects a small portion of society that are into all this wokery, all of this DEI stuff. It's marginal. It's marginal that suits the palates of the left-wing North London Guardian readers who run the BBC and indeed write to Doctor Who. They have forgotten who their audience is, haven't they?
I think it's good to be mindful of everything that's going on.
Yeah, but they've forgotten their audience. Their audience is, by the way,
absolutely. Ken,
it's supposed to be a children's show, by the way.
Well, this is the thing. So, look, it's a fictional thing, and I think that it's clear that the viewing figures reflect that something is not right, right? So, and I think we can all agree on that with regards to the fact that it needs some sort of transformation. And I think that when a programme becomes too lectury about anything, when it has a political agenda, when it gets to on about this, that, or the next thing, that people lose interest because they're there to get lost in a fantasy thing. And I think when somebody comes in with another agenda, that can very often put people right off. So
you're right.
Absolutely right. And I think the mix of what's happened with the Eurovision has not helped matters either. He
didn't do himself any favours there, did he? But you hit the nail on the head there, Beverly. It's become too preachy, too lectury. People want to be entertained with interesting stories. They don't want to be told what to think. Certainly not through the prism of a silly sci-fi series. Beverly, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Beverly Lyons there, entertainment reporter, on the sad fate of Doctor Who and the star who's just been fired. Alex Phillips is coming into the studio, and I'm going to ask her. Hello, Alex. Well, look, you can ponder on this while you put your microphone in. Fulham, Man City. Who do you think is going to win?
I mean, Lord knows. Man City. But no, Fulham,
thank you very much.
Fulham, because you support them.
Listen, I must say, though, seriously, Fulham, Man City, exclusive radio coverage on TalkStalk, 4 p.m. on Sunday. I'll be there. As I say, I think it'll be about 6-1 to Fulham, but you never know. Hello, Alex.
Hello, my love.
How are you?
I'm all right. Bit tired,
no, you can talk. You can talk. I had to get up at 3:30 this morning.
Yeah, how many hours did you get?
I went to bed about midnight, but in the manner of these, I couldn't get to sleep. I think I maybe had about 90 minutes or something.
People don't know what it's like in this job.
It's hard to get to
sleep. They think it's easy, sitting in this box for 3 hours, entertaining the nation 4 hours. And when you do a late one and an early one, my word, you need some sort of medal, Kev.
Absolutely. What you got coming up, anyway?
Well, we're going to be discussing the Chagos surrender because it's massive news. And the more I learn about this, the more astonishing it is. The ICJ ruling, one of the judges was some Chinese judge who actually backed the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm like, come on now.
Who gives a damn about the ICJ ruling? Why don't we make a decision for ourselves?
Why doesn't he know the word no?
It's mad.
Like when he used to, can we have 12 years worth of fish? The answer is no. Yeah. When Mauritius said, can we have the Chagos Island? The answer is no. Why doesn't he get that?
They should have a Keir Starmer doll. Pull his string and he goes, yes, yes, I agree, yes, yes. I mean, he never says no to anything, does he?
No to anything.
World's worst negotiator.
And I think that part is really obsessed with China, because I did a bit of research this morning, and since they came to government a year ago, Rachel Reeves has been over, David Lammy's been over, what's-his-face Reynolds, the trade guy, is supposed to be going over.
The
Starmer announced early on at the start of his premiership that he wanted to go over himself. I'm like, can they just leave China alone, please?
Well, also, Miliband went there, didn't he? Destroying the planet on a big jet plane.
They love China. I actually think they're part of the Chinese Communist Party at this point.
You've seen Ofgem, the price cap for energy has come down, but apparently it's got nothing.